And 2, and strike 3, blisters the outside corner. How about that sequence? 2 heaters and a slider, and Libby's got out number 1. 0-2 pitch, and Liberatore has thrown nothing but strikes. As that's cut on a miss. Liberatore is matching Skeen's pitch for pitch in the air center. Victor's got it, and the Cardinals have beaten Skeens again. 2-1 is your final. Graceffo with a 1-2-3 ninth earns the save.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. That's what it sounded like last night on FanDuel Sports Midwest as the Cardinals find a way, once again, to beat Paul Skeens. A big reason why last night, Alex Ferrario, is Matthew Liberatore. I think there were a lot of questions going into the season about whether or not this experiment would work. I think those questions were very fair. I had some of them myself. I said coming into the season, and listen, I'm dead ass wrong about everything, so this is not me like patting myself on the back. I promise you that. I said coming into the season, if you're going to do this, now's the time when it has to happen, because starting next year, I don't think there's an opportunity for him. You just have too many other young arms that are going to need that runway to be a part of your rotation. So I thought it was smart to give this a chance now, and if it fails, it fails. Then he goes back to the bullpen, and you know he's a really good reliever there. But this is starting to look, Alex, like so many of the other Cardinals starters that have worked out in the past. You go back to Michael Wacha, for example, had some good opportunities out of the bullpen to begin and then became a really good starter for the Cardinals when he was age 22, 23 years old. Lance Lynn, first opportunities for the Cardinals, coming out of the bullpen as a 24-year-old. Then he became a starter, a consistent guy. You really liked what you got out of him. I think sometimes it's easy to forget how young Matthew Liberatore still is. This guy's 25 years old, man. Lance Lynn's first full season as a starter for the Cardinals at the big league level, he was 25 years old. It feels like it's taken forever to get to this place because Matthew Liberatore was a prep starter, not a guy that came from college. But his first year in the big leagues, for most guys that are coming out of college, is their final season as a college starter. So this has not actually been some like long drawn out process the way that it might have felt. Liberatore was a great reliever last year for the Cardinals, and now he's transitioning to becoming a legitimate weapon for the Cardinals out of their rotation. What is your opinion of the matter, Alex, and what have you seen from Matthew Liberatore that stands out, especially last night against the Pirates?
People aren't going to like this, but turns out Mo may have been correct when he told us that there's still time for this trade to work out for the Cardinals. Because, I mean, look, I won't be a hypocrite because 3 starts into his season, I was like, I don't trust this. I don't think he looks very good. I understand he found ways, and they were just a couple of blow-up innings, but he was getting beat. And I'm thinking, man, what's going on here? But I give him all of the credit. That guy has settled in. Ever since that Pittsburgh Pirates start, he's given up 2 or fewer runs in every single outing. And the one was a 3-inning outing against Cincinnati.
That was the rain delay.
Yeah. But you all expect that one. If the rain doesn't happen, he's going deeper for you, and you're probably talking about a competitive outing. I mean, this is the best case scenario for the Cardinals. We have talked so much about how this team needs to find cost-controlled starting pitching. And Andre Palante seemed like it. Michael McGreevy seems like he's going to be it. But Matthew Liberatore, for me, is different because he's got the swing and miss stuff. He's pitching from the left side, which we all know how much the Cardinals love their left-handed pitchers. But he's doing everything for you. He's giving you the innings. He's missing bats. He's composed at the mound. This, to me, is a win for the Cardinals in a season that was supposed to be answering questions. You got another answer for a question that at the beginning of the year, full transparency, I didn't expect it to even be a question. I thought the dude should have just been in the bullpen, use him as a high-leverage relief, be like Andrew Miller, and have a great career. But credit to the Cardinals because they said, nope, let's find out what this kid's got, and he is showcasing it.
Can we give some credit to Dusty Blake for a second? I know nobody wants to do it.
I think Dusty's been great ever since he got hired here.
I do too.
Dude, think about the rehabilitation projects that he's taken on, basically, as the Cardinals pitching coach. He's been in charge of overseeing Jordan Hicks, completely figuring things out at the big league level, right? Couldn't send him down. There was no option there. We all said, just DFA him. It's over. It's clearly not working. He hasn't been a good reliever in like 3 years at the time. Just DFA him. This is not working for the Cardinals. They put the magic pixie dust of Dusty Blake on him. Suddenly he becomes not only a good reliever again, but a valuable weapon for the Cardinals coming out of the pen, and then eventually a legitimate trade asset for them at the trade deadline. Worked out there. You look at what he was able to do with some of the older starters over the last few seasons. It's worked out pretty well for the Cardinals with some of the guys that they took on. You look at what he's able to do with last year, Andre Pallante. They put the plan in place for him to go down to the minor leagues, figure things out, implement that sinker, and now Andre Pallante, listen, it ain't perfect. He's a really solid number 5 starter for you. And then last year, Liberatore becomes a full-time reliever, and it looks great. And then this season, he comes back, he becomes a full-time starter. Every opportunity he's had to go at least 6 innings, he has. The one opportunity that he did not do so was in Cincinnati, as Alex mentioned, where you have the rain delay. He's not able to come back out for the 4th. He tried to, though.
Yeah.
He went into the bullpen to simulate an inning while they were in the rain delay and tried to talk his way into going back out there into the 4th.
I love that.
That's awesome.
That's
the exact mindset that you want to have as a 25-year-old starter that's trying to break through this season. So you couldn't ask for anything more from the player, and I don't think you can ask for a whole lot more from the pitching coach, who is showing a proof of concept right now of making this stuff work with whoever it is that he's handed.
And not to go full optimism with people here, but that's what we tried to do with the Blues season when they were showcasing all of these pieces. Like, think about it. You've seen Pallante now for 2 years where he's been competitive for you, a really good cost-controlled back end of the rotation pitcher. Now you've got Liberatore. You've already experienced the Michael McGreevy thing so much that people have been frustrated he's not still on the roster. And now you're seeing Jordan Graceffo have success up at the major league level. All of it, too, without seeing the Quinn Matthews or the Tink Hents, the TK Robies. Like, this is the optimism that the Cardinals were hoping to provide people. You're at least starting to see the benefits of what they've been trying to be patient with.
YouTube is available for you at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. And T-Bone, I want to get your thoughts on this. Shooter over there says, why can't Dusty fix Michaelis then? Have we not watched Michaelis?
I think he's fixed Michaelis now.
As much as you can.
As much as, yeah. And I was going to say, I remember, I think it was when Dusty was hired, the first thing they said was, well, we're going to see if he can, like, add swing and miss to Michaelis' repertoire. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's like trying to set him up for failure. But what they are doing is they are telling him to miss more, and he is missing more, and it's leading to softer contact. So that is working.
5 starts, he's gone 26 innings. Not great, but it's fine. And he has a 2.7 ERA.
That will play.
I'm sorry, guys, but that's what you want out of Miles Michaelis. Like, it's not sexy. You're not going to love the results. This is Miles Michaelis at this point in his career. There's not getting more out of him. He's not going to suddenly become a number 1 starter that misses a bunch of bats. But this is what you can get out of him. This is probably the peak version of Miles Michaelis at this point in his career. Dusty Blake has changed some things with his arsenal. He is approaching things a little bit better. So I'll give him, full credit for what he's done with Miles Michaelis as well. I thought that was a lost cause. A lot of people said you should just send him away. I heard the Fast Lane even yesterday saying, just get him out. Get him out of here. Why? This is fine. It's not great. You want more for the money you're paying him, but no, there's no reason to get rid of Miles Michaelis if this is what he's producing. All right, T-Bone, on the Liberatore side of things, Dusty Blake, what they're getting out of their rotation right now, what is your opinion on the matter?
Well, I thought for sure at this point, 7 starts in, we would be talking about Liberatore moving back to the pen at the beginning of the season. I thought there was no way this was going to work out. But credit to Matthew Liberatore, credit to Ollie Marmol and Dusty Blake. Matthew Liberatore can now get right-handed guys out, which means he can be a starter. And when you take kind of a peek under the hood, look, you watch him and the stuff looks good. The location looks incredible. He's not walking anybody hardly. And then you take a look at the under the hood stuff. Chase rate, 82nd percentile in Major League Baseball. You take a look at the whiff rate. It's about middle of the pack, 53 percentile. But it looks all sustainable. When you look at what the peek under the hood shows you, all his stuff looks like it's going to play. He looks like a sustainable number 3 starter for the St. Louis Cardinals that they've been able to develop that is cost control. I think he's going to be the guy. I think the other starters, Michaelis, Gray, Pallante, Fetty, I think you're going to see them kind of go through a little bit of a roller coaster because when you peek under the hood for them, there are some kind of worry signs. Matthew Liberatore, I don't see that. I think there's a chance he's the most consistent starter for the Cardinals this year. That doesn't mean he's more than a number 3, but it is certainly a win for the Cardinals to develop a number 3 left-handed starter.
Parade right now for the Cardinals and for Matthew Liberatore. Like, nobody's telling you this team is World Series bound. Nobody's telling you that he's an ace. Sometimes you could just celebrate the little wins. Zach Bolduc becoming a 20-goal scorer for the Blues, that's a win. That's a huge win for the Blues this season. Is he going to be a future top line or even potentially top 6 player? I have no idea. But I know he's a very good third line winger that can play on your power play and become a contributor there. That's a win for them. This year was about having those individual pieces that become wins, and eventually, if you have enough of those, guess what? You get into the playoffs. For the Cardinals this year, this particular experiment was about, can Matthew Liberatore become a solid middle of the rotation starter? If yes, dude, that's a huge win for them. If no, cool, we've still got a good bullpen arm. And we find that out, and next year he goes into the season as a bullpen reliever for us. Cool, no harm, no foul. They seem to have found something. They seem to have unlocked something. It is still early. It's only 7 starts. We're about a quarter of the way through a season. I'm really curious how they're going to manage his innings as we go along here. I think that will become a storyline eventually. But for right now, dude, this is a season where you celebrate the little wins. And for the Cardinals, this is a mini win.
I feel like I'm about to take the BK approach to where he yells at people for being upset when we should be enjoying things. Maybe not yell. That's too harsh of a word. Disappointed. That's a better word. For how miserable we have been over the last 3 seasons watching the Cardinals.
Totally.
Can we, I know you said we're not throwing a parade, and we're not throwing a parade, but can we throw a mini parade? Because it has been awful. We were done with this team for the last 2 seasons by this point.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about guys that are actually fitting into roles that the Cardinals team need. Yeah, you know what? A number 3 starter isn't anything you're going to write home about. But the Cardinals go out there and spend $75 million on number 3 starters. This offense This offense is real. And this is coming from a guy who has been a Cardinals naysayer for the last 3 years. This offense is real. So, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this team is going to even make the playoffs. But you know what I will do? Enjoy the fact that we are talking about competitive Cardinals baseball rather than last 2 years talking about this team getting swept by the Chicago White Sox.
They've won 4 in a row. They're 18-19 on the season, have a chance today to get back above 500. We all thought by the end of the month they would be 10 games out of first place in the Central Division. Instead, they're 3 games back of a playoff spot today. So it's not all like doom and gloom today. It might be in a week. Totally could be.
And they do go on, I think, a 9-game road trip.
And I will embrace the doom and gloom when it happens.
They go to Washington, Philly, and Kansas City. In 10 days, it could be real bad. But for right now, hey, man, it's not so bad. And yesterday, you got a hell of a start out of Matthew Liberatore. He's Alex's T-Bone on BK. There was one other Cardinals pitcher that we got to talk about in his new role. And did it take too long to transition him to this role? We'll talk about that next year on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario with you to tell you about my friends out at Classic Air Care who have been making people comfortable since 1926. And a great story with this one. So my buddy just bought a new home. He and his wife moved into with their 2 little ones. And the HVAC system that they had was 27 years old. And he was like, it was a concern for us, but we wanted to make sure we got the house in the area we wanted. And so I told him, hey, call Classic Air Care. I said, if you need a new one, they're going to be honest with you, but they might be able to get that one to last for you. And he did. He called them up. Their technician came out and he said they walked them through the entire thing and showcased how their unit is old, but also explains to them the pieces that were old and said that it should be able to get them about 3 or 4 more years as long as they stay with the maintenance agreement. So he's happy with this work, and I'm so happy that he called Classic Air Care because they've been doing this for my home since 2020, and my dad has been using them for as long as I can remember. So give Classic Air Care a call today. Let them know Alex Ferrario sent you. If you got an older unit, if you got a brand new unit, it needs the maintenance agreement so that it can carry you for however long you're living in that home. Classic Air Care, or you can schedule online, classicaircare.com.
we knew this would be the quickest way for him to impact the big league club in shorter stints, 1 to 2 innings at a time out of the bullpen. We had a good feeling that his stuff would tick up, and he would have some swing and miss stuff up here if we were to do that. So, yeah, we went back and forth. Obviously, we started him in Memphis, but we knew that it could lead to this at some point, and we're here, and it's looking pretty good.
That was Ollie Marmol after the game last night. He's talking about Jordan Graceffo, whose stuff has certainly played up in the bullpen thus far. He gets his first career save last night alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. It was a quick inning for Jordan Graceffo. He looks really good in that role, man. He looks like a guy that could basically do what Matthew Liberatore did, which is come in, become a reliable reliever in high-leverage innings, and then eventually maybe he does transition back to the rotation, or maybe he just becomes a high-leverage reliever for you long-term, which isn't the worst-case scenario for a lot of these guys. But that wasn't the plan, at least for the first month of the season. The first month of the season, it was, well, Graceffo is needed as a long reliever/starter option for the Cardinals. And now he's in these short burst innings. I like it. I kind of like the way they've operated here with both Matthew Liberatore and with Jordan Graceffo. And honestly, I think they've done a pretty good job with all of these starters. I've got my critiques about the way that the Cardinals handle some of these players. But this year, I think they've been pretty smart with all of their pitching options. I understand, though, that some people disagree with me in that regard. And some people would say the bullpen was a huge issue early on in the season. Graceffo clearly could have helped them, and they opted against it. T-Bone is one of those people, and he's going to explain to you right now why that is the case. T-Bone, what did you dislike about the way that they handled the Jordan Graceffo situation?
Well, the thing that I didn't like about it was, even if you did want to use him as depth as starting pitching over concerns about injuries in April, okay, I can get that. But he was the 8th starter that you were building up, right? Because if they had an injury, so say, knock on wood, this doesn't happen, say Sonny Gray got hurt, who slides into the rotation back in April? It's probably Steven Matz. Sure. It's probably not even a McGreevy call, but it's probably Matz. Okay, well then let's say somebody else gets hurt, then who do they go to? Then they go to McGreevy. And then if somebody else gets hurt, then you're finally to Graceffo. Like, that just feels like operating scared if we're getting to the 8th guy. Now, look, some teams have legitimately had this issue. Like the Dodgers have basically their whole rotation on the IL. But the reason that I bring that up is because it's clear, and the way that they've talked about Graceffo going back to, I think it was 2022, when he was in Double-A, there was talk about, boy, this is a power arm that could really help us potentially in the bullpen. So the Cardinals have already been sprinkling throughout the last couple of seasons of, hey, this guy's probably a bullpen arm in the long run. And the reason that I kind of look at it, it didn't end up hurting them. I want to be clear. It didn't end up hurting them. It was clear, though, the bullpen had the potential to potentially sink them in April. It really did. The way that the bullpen was pitching with Roycroft, with Fernandez, who they took a while to send down, that's the only reason I would say they were probably a little too late. Now, I did like that they finally said, okay, we're going to start to churn through some of these options. So they went to O'Brien, they went to Munoz. So my assumption was, okay, so they're just planning on Graceffo being a starter. Again, I'm okay with that if that's what the plan is for the entire season. And we'll see if it works out. I like Graceffo's stuff in the bullpen. But it feels just weird to me that there was suddenly, you hit May and it was like, ha-ha, we made it to May where everybody's healthy, so Graceffo's back into the bullpen. Here we go. I just find it weird how they reached another pivot point, right? We've seen a couple of these now this season where it was, hey, they lost that series to the Mets, and all of a sudden we're not pinch hitting for anybody. Oh, we're going to start the year out with, hey, it's Alec Burleson. Oh, no, okay, it's Nolan Gorman. Now we're going back to Alec Burleson. To be fair, that one works now because he's hitting. But I just find some of their pivots to be a little bit weird. I'm glad they finally got to this spot. I think he could have helped out the bullpen a little bit sooner and maybe avoid a couple of those losses in April. But this is clearly what his role needs to be. And to their credit, they seem to be figuring out this bullpen mess.
Yeah, I don't mind this one at all. Now, the pinch hitting one, I just don't totally understand it. It's something that I will ask about next time that we go down to the ballpark. I know that there's a long road trip, so we won't get the answer on this for a little bit. But I would be really curious to find out, like, what's the mindset on that? And why was there that switch? Because there was a tangible moment when everything seemed to change. They were doing a lot of pinch hitting opportunities early on in the season. Mets series happens, and then boom, they don't do that anymore. So much so that I really wonder if Luke Baker is the guy that ends up going down whenever Ivan Herrera comes back up to the big league club by the end of this week. I think that's at least something that probably should be discussed. So
carry 3 catchers?
Yeah, carry 3 catchers. Luke Baker has basically no role on the team right now, especially when Herrera comes back. He's probably going to get a decent amount of time at DH as a right-handed hitter. I don't know how Baker fits into that roster.
That would make sense, too, because then you have two catchers, then you don't have to worry about Herrera being the option for you.
Exactly. And if you have Herrera on any given day as the DH, you don't have to worry about a pinch hit situation. Like, okay, boom, ready, go.
Yeah.
Anyway, set that aside for a second. That one I do feel a little conflicted about. The Gorman-Burleson thing, I actually think has worked out pretty well for them because it's basically been hey, neither of you guys are hitting. We're going to give you a little bit of runway here to see if it works. And if it doesn't over a 2-week stretch, well, we're going to flip over to the other guy and we'll see if it works for him. And so far this year, like up until the last week, it didn't work for either of them. And then in the past week, Burleson has been hitting the crap out of the baseball. So it's clicking. And now Burleson, hey, you keep going until you hit a big struggle, and then we'll find out if you hit that struggle, what Gorman can do again when he's inserted back into the mix. So I don't necessarily have a problem with that one. The one that I have the least issue with, though, is Jordan Graceffo. And the reason why is because I think there was just almost no downside to their plan. Here's what I mean by that. You came into the season and you had to find out what you had in Fernandez, and then Roycroft got that last opportunity in the bullpen. You couldn't assume going into the season that Fernandez was going to be terrible. There was no way to know that.
Yeah, I mean, he ended last year as your second best arm.
You couldn't assume going into the season that Jojo Romero was going to be as bad as he was. So, T-Bone, you make a face, but like he was really good the last 6 weeks of the season last year. You couldn't make that assumption that he was just going to be bad again going into the regular season this year. You also had Steven Matz, who could backfill in the case where you needed him there. There just wasn't really a leverage spot for Jordan Graceffo. Eventually now there is, and you could have made the case maybe like 2 weeks ago there was. So was there a need for him to make those last 2 starts down at the AAA level? Maybe not. It's also worth noting he got his teeth kicked in his first 2 starts down in AAA, dude. He got rocked. His first start at Memphis, 2 1/3 innings, gave up 4 earned runs. Second start, 3 innings, 7 runs allowed. Third start, finally, 4 innings, 4 earned runs, 5 innings, 2 earned runs, starts to look better, 6 innings, 1 earned run, and then he gets the opportunity at the big league level. Some of this was just, he wasn't pitching well. He starts pitching better, and they say, okay, this guy's our best option. Let's see what he can do at the big league level. And guess what? It's been up here ever since. So I actually think they've operated really well with Graceffo specifically this season. And I think generally speaking, outside of taking way too long with Fernandez and Roycroft, in my personal opinion, I think they've done a pretty good job of managing the pitching side of things.
Yeah, that's where I understand, T-Bone, where you're coming from, because I also was frustrated with how long they were sticking with the Fernandez and Roycroft thing, to where it was like, no, these are our only options, and then all of a sudden you've got Graceffo. But I think Graceffo falls into the conversation of what we were complaining about at the beginning of the season with McGreevy, to where they don't have enough depth in the minor leagues for starting pitching, and they believed Graceffo was a starting pitcher, so he started 4 games down in Memphis, and they're like, let's stretch him out. And then when you did hit the breaking point where you learned about Fernandez, you learned about Roycroft, and you're like, we need some weapons now. That's when you finally get to it. So we're like, look, we thought it would work, but now we need him as an arm in the bullpen, and you can use him as a bullpen arm and get to the point of being a starting pitcher. So I'm kind of the same. I don't see the issue with it. I didn't like how long it took with Fernandez and Roycroft, but I get it. Like, Fernandez was one of your best arms last year. Roycroft at the end of the season, I was under the assumption that he was going to be a really good bullpen piece for you. And you do got to give him a little bit of runway, even when it blows up in your face of saying, can you figure this out, or are you going back to Memphis? They did it. Riley O'Brien hasn't worked for them. The other options haven't worked. And so now you've exhausted all options. So now you go to the starting pitching side of things and say, now we start to see what these guys have to offer.
I think to your question, T-Bone, on why did it take this long, I think it was about Graceffo's performance. I think that's why it took so long. Graceffo was not performing well in the season. His stuff did not look as good as it does now. And now, after a couple of really good starts down at the AAA level, he gets that opportunity, and he's showcasing what he's capable of. We'll see if it continues. His first opportunity at the big league level, he was throwing like 98, 99. Now he's back into like the mid-90s for the most part, which is fine. That's a more than acceptable spot for him to be. We'll see what this looks like in a month and how he transitions to a full-time opportunity in the bullpen. But so far, so good. They look like they might have at least started to fix their bullpen woes. You've got your big 3, which has been the case all season. Graceffo now fits into the mix as a leverage guy. Steven Matz is now a legit option for you coming out of the bullpen. They said they're done with the 6-man rotation for now. And then you've got JoJo, John King, Chris Roycroft as the extras that you can potentially use on any given day. I think they're in a pretty decent spot, all things considered, in their bullpen. All right, he's Alex's T-Bone on BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is available for you at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. We'll get to questions and answers in 15 minutes. But coming up next, Chris Kerber is the voice of the Blues, and he'll join us here on BK and Ferrario.
Hey, Chris Kerber with you here. And look, if I told you there was a way that you could have peace of mind, be comfortable in your own home, and save money in the process, you'd say, okay, how do I do it? Well, it's really simple. A service agreement with Classic Air Care. Now you're going, okay, you got me. No, I didn't get you. I'm telling you the truth. Here's the reality of it. You get a service agreement with Classic Air Care. They come out to your house in the spring to make sure the air conditioner is ready to go. They come out to your house in the fall. They make sure that the furnace is ready to go. They test everything from the temperature when it leaves the unit to the temperature where it comes out. It makes sure that the airflow is proper. It makes sure that all those things are working, which is how you diagnose other aspects of the unit. Why does it give you peace of mind? You know that that unit is being maintained and taken care of as one of the most important pieces of your house. How does it give you comfort? Well, your house is comfortable because you know it's working. So as we head into the middle of the summer and you get the heat, you know you've given yourself the best chance to avoid any kind of major repair. The other thing is, if a major repair is needed, you've got the peace of mind to know they've got a 4.8 Google rating, so you know the service is excellent. You know that you've got trained service people that have been in the business for a long time, some as many as 40 years. You know they can work on any unit, and you know that you're taken care of. That's what you get with Classic Air Care. That's why I use them. That's why you can use them. Classic Air Care. Set an appointment online or go get a service agreement online at classicaircare.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals took down the Pirates yesterday 2-1, and they go for the sweep today. 12:15 will be first pitch. Sonny Gray will be on the mound for St. Louis. Mitch Keller will get the start for the Pirates. We'll keep you updated on the Cardinals game throughout the day today here on 101 ESPN. The Sports Center is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. SeaMilano.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline for our weekly chat with the voice of the Blues. He's Chris Kerber joining us here on BK and Ferrario following the Blues' round one loss on the road at Winnipeg, 4-3 in double overtime in Game 7. Yesterday, the Blues had their postseason media availability. We heard from Jim Montgomery. We heard from Doug Armstrong. We got to talk to Doug Armstrong here on the show, and now we talk to Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues. Kerbs, appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm sitting here thinking that sometimes the people that cut the meat in the deli counter in a grocery store challenge themselves to see how thin that they can get it. So when you get it home, you can't peel a piece off on its own.
Yeah, here's the
It all crumbles, right?
Yeah, here's the real question, Curbs. How thin do you prefer your lunch meat?
Not okay. Thin enough, but not so thin that you can't take it off piece by piece when you get it home, like where it just sticks together. Right? I don't like crumbles. I don't know what the measurement is, but see-through is not good enough. You know, like you get it home and then you go to peel it off the stack and it breaks. You're like, geez, I just want a piece of like turkey or ham, and it just breaks off. Like
That's why you always go lunch. That's why you always go lunch meat slice. It's an inch thick, Curbs. That's how you like your lunch meat. Yeah.
An inch thick?
Yeah.
Do you know how big an inch is?
Now I will do that. Listen, well, yeah, he knows how big an inch is. Yeah, he does. Don't ask me that question. He does. All right. Listen, but listen. Now you do that with bologna. Like, give me a smoked bologna sandwich. I'm all over it.
Absolutely.
You know. But anyway, that was my last 20 minutes.
I don't like lunch
apologize.
meat in general.
Yeah. Well, here's my surprised face.
All right, Curbs, let's talk about the Blues, shall we?
By the way, Curbs, I'll text you that audio cut after the show today of BK saying, "Do you know how big an inch is?" And you can use it for whenever you need it.
It might be my ringtone for you.
It will be mine, that's for sure.
All right, Curbs. Blue season comes to an end, and listen, you know this as well as anybody. Fans were very upset on Monday morning, justifiably so. It was an absolute gut-wrenching way to finish out your season. Now that we've had a couple of days to process all of this, and Curbs, you have very good context on this given how long you've been around this club. How do you look back at this season and try to recap it, summarize what we were able to witness and the ride that this team took us on?
If I look at the season as a whole, to use Doug Armstrong's, the vernacular of 30,000 feet, I think they had a really good season. I actually was a little surprised. Doug said it was, it was okay, not great. And for a general manager, that's what you want to hear. Great means you're winning a Stanley Cup, right? And anything short of that, is some level of disappointment. But when you look at where this team was, when you look at what the footprint and the blueprint that was laid out for fans directly by Doug Armstrong over the last 2 summers and seasons, and then you look at the entertainment value you had, you look at what you saw, you look at the future, you're seeing what he said was come into fruition and actually be impactful. I think you've got to be pretty happy with the way this season went. It doesn't take away the pain. It doesn't mean that you had, a 7-game series right in your fingertips to the very end. Doesn't take away the disappointment of that. But, again, big picture, yeah, you've got to be really excited about the way this is going. And, Pete DeBoer was the one. Alex had the cut. Pete DeBoer of the Dallas Stars said it best. He looks at Minnesota and the Blues. He goes, those are 100-point teams. They had some bumps in the road this year. The quality of this team right now is really good, and I think fans should be excited.
Curbs, I heard you say it on TMA that you believe the whatever they're going to label it is over. Doug Armstrong said it also yesterday in the availability. If that's true, does this offseason now shift into aggressive mode of starting to find upgrades that make the NHL team better, or are they still in the seeing what they have in their pipeline?
Well, guys, there was an interesting dialogue yesterday, and I know you both were there, and Tanner was there. When he was asked about Radek Faksa, I think Radek Faksa is a player you have to sign, or a player you definitely would like to sign. Obviously, he has to want to stay too, and I know he had a good year and liked it here a lot. But the reason I say that, and this other part of the conversation, maybe not necessarily one designed for a press conference, but it's one I'd like to have. You look at the assets that you have coming, but then you look at how quickly you sped the process up with Broberg and Holloway. You see that, Snuggerud can have an impact, but you also see that you're going to have some growing pains in there as well. You look at the players that have taken some steps. One, you've now been afforded additional time to let a Dvorsky, a Stenberg, a Lindstein, a Kaskamaki continue to develop and grow. Young players. You don't have to bring them up at the age of 20 and see what they can do and be forced into that scenario. However, the question is with the way this group is, all of a sudden are you looking at, okay, are some of those assets actually, can you go into, say, a 2019 type mode, right? Or 2018, I should say, type mode, where during that offseason, you make some moves to really spring you forward the rest of the way, and you end up winning a Stanley Cup that year. And I think it's a fair, fun question to ask, an avenue to look at because of where this team is. The Dallas Stars just continue somehow to be really good. Colorado is not going to get worse. Winnipeg has proven that they're a really good team. You look at where Minnesota, what they've been able to do, they've only got one more year of Kappa. You got the Blues. I don't think Nashville can be just that bad again, can they? And then Chicago eventually is going to come because yet again they're going to get another high pick. The Central Division is tough. I just think that it is a fascinating one. And, yeah, I do think you can speed up the process a little bit more now if you want. Because, guys, look, I was thinking about this team and allowed myself to dream a little bit what if they did go on another 2019 type run? If you can manage to get a Stanley Cup championship here in the next few years with a younger group, right? Remember, when they got into 2019, some of those groups are aging out. You only had one more year of Pietrangelo. You had some of the older guys, the Bouwmeesters, the Gunnarsons, the Steens, things like that, right? Well, the Blackhawks, when they won their 3 and 6, they did it because they won early with that young core. The Blues can do that. That's when you can put together a few cups over a few years.
Yeah, big thing that's different there, Curbs, is like your best players now are both signed long-term and in that prime age range, right? Like you look at Kyrou, Thomas, Holloway, the defensive core when you're looking at Parayko and Broberg now. You've got them under long-term control, and they're in that late 20s, early 30s kind of a range. I'd follow a question that I had for you, Curbs, because the Blues are really in an interesting spot where they have a lot of young players that if you want to just keep them here, you can, and they're good players to build around, or they could be trade capital for you this offseason to do that aggressive move that you're talking about. They also have a ton of cap space potentially available for them. Yesterday, I think Doug Armstrong made it pretty clear they don't expect Torrey Krug to play again at any point, so that's $6.5 million that you potentially have to spend. They also had the $4 million that Brandon Saad's contract had on it that he just willingly said, no, I'm good. I'll go out and try to make my way in the NHL on another team. That's a lot of money to be able to spend potentially this offseason, Curbs, and you got to take into account some of the extensions that could come in, but do you think that this is an offseason where they could be more aggressive at the top of the market than we are otherwise anticipating, both via free agency or the trade market?
There's two different things. You've got the cap, and then you've got your budget.
Sure.
Right? And for some teams, they are the one and the same. For other teams, they're not. You know, spending to the cap is what the league says is the cap. But if you go look at, like, cap wages, for example, a contract like Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas, their actual pay this year was over the $10 million range, while their actual cap hit was at 8.125, right? There's things like that. So that I can't answer that question fully in terms of, you know, where the Blues budget is in relation to the cap. You could look at the Vegas Golden Knights, whose budget might be $20 million over the cap, right?
And you're talking about cash spending
okay.
there.
Yeah, cash spending, which is part of the business, right?
Sure.
Okay, but to your point, yeah, if you have the space, it gives you the flexibility. Look, the other thing, guys, and we'll have time over the next few weeks maybe to get more into this, but write out your top six, knowing that you have to find, whether it be Dvorsky, Shen another year, or you go out and you find one, a second-line center, right? Because if you find one, you've really given Dvorsky some real room here, okay? But if you're able to do that, you've got a lot of wingers where, you know, like if you found just a surefire second-line center, you could be talking about a Neighbors, a Bolduc, and a Shen on your third line, right? Which would be really good. And yet these are guys that you know can play in the top six. It should be in the top six. So do you make some adjustments there and how you balance the lineup out? Like there's a lot of fascinating aspects to the summer for the Blues on that side, because again, you still have young players that could go through some bumps in the road in the process of continuing to grow. But you're absolutely right, BK. The Blues have options this year, both in terms of assets, in terms of players, and assets and cap space, and that can make for a fascinating decision time for these guys.
And Doug Armstrong's last full off season as the number one guy that's pulling the strings as well. So I have to imagine he's going to want to put his stamp on this team in some way or another heading into 2025. Hey, Curbs, we appreciate the time as always, man. It's been an absolute pleasure to be able to catch up with you each week during the Blues season. Now we continue to do so during the offseason. Going to be a lot of fun to talk about that as well. We'll talk with you again next week, my man.
All right, guys, keep up the great work. Good seeing you at the rink yesterday, and we'll see what the offseason holds.
Awesome.
Got him. See you, Curbs.
Voice of the Blues, joining us as he does each and every Wednesday here on BK and Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, I do want to talk about that with you, Alex. Should the Blues get aggressive this offseason? And if so, what are the names that we should be considering in that regard? We'll talk about that in 15 minutes. Questions and answers is next here on BK and Ferrario. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now. We'll try to answer as many as we can prior to our next segment on the St. Louis Blues and whether or not they should get aggressive this offseason. From the 314, Alex, this is a question that I've seen cropping up a little bit lately. Do you think the Cardinals should try to be aggressive and trade Helsley now? Trading him early might actually help with the return a bit, but I do fear that the Cardinals would say they're still currently in playoff contention and would try to hold on to him as long as possible. What would you do if you were in Mo's shoes?
I would trade him. I'm trading him no matter what this season, but if the return's not as valuable as you think now versus the trade deadline, then I wait till the deadline. But I'm trading him no matter what this season.
I think you actually would get more at the deadline than if
kind of
you traded him right now, and here's why. The teams that are in contention are probably going to be in contention at the deadline, and they want to see who's healthy. That is the most important thing about trading for a closer at the deadline is who's healthy and throwing well then. And if Ryan Helsley comes over to your team right now and you utilize him, like if I'm a contender, I love the way the Cardinals are using Ryan Helsley right now.
Not pitching
Use him as little as humanly possible.
Which why part of me wonders if a team would just be aggressive now and say, let's get him in-house so that we know we have him and we can manage him on our own schedule.
Maybe, but if you're a contender and you're playing a contender schedule and you're consistently winning, playing close games, using him now, those innings are much more valuable. If you can keep him healthy and sparingly used and having a fresher arm when you get to July 31st, and he doesn't have to pitch other than the last 2 months for you. He's pitching in the stretch run for those contenders. So there's different perspectives on this, certainly, and I could see a team viewing it the way Alex does. But for me personally, I view it twofold. One, I think if I'm another contender, I'm waiting. I don't want to trade for him right now. I want to wait until we get closer to August to see what my options are and assess the land before I make that kind of a big move. And two, if I'm the Cardinals, I'm probably waiting to see how many teams I can get involved in those discussions before making that official deal as we get closer to the deadline. So I would not move him right now. I understand the calls for it. You want to get something for that asset as soon as possible so the asset doesn't break, but I would wait.
Yeah, I would probably wait a little longer, too. I think when you get towards the end of June is when you can really start to pick up those conversations. Because I went back and I looked. I was curious, when did Chapman get traded to the Rangers when the Royals acquired Cole Reagans? June 30th. So they even waited quite a bit,
That was aggressive, and that was a month from now.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I say, look, if you're blown out of the water with a trade offer, you make the move happen. I don't think that's coming till we get towards later in June.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. From the 217, you're going to love this question, Alex. Why don't you talk about how overrated Robert Thomas is and why the Blues should get rid of him? He doesn't show those superstar attributes in the playoff all these other teams have with guys that stick out because they are better than him. If you aren't a Blues fan, you wouldn't be able to pick up Robert Thomas out of that group. Waste of money, in my opinion. So, Alex, why don't you talk more about how overrated Robert Thomas is?
You know what? Shame on me. I probably should do that a lot more. Like, shame on me for being a homer when we've had national people on that have said he's a legit superstar in the NHL. Shame on me. My question to you, 217, who are these better players that have performed that Robert Thomas hasn't? And I'm legit.
Talking about in the playoffs?
Huh?
Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about
I'm assuming that's what they're going off of because, I mean, he was a point-per-game player in the playoffs for you. Did he score goals? No, but he got two of them
Mostly
for you.
came in one game.
And, well, they were timely goals at the time. The Blues just blew the lead. But I'm legitimately curious, who are the stars on the other side? Is it Anze Kopitar with the Kings? Do we all view him a star? Because he had the same amount of points as Robert Thomas did. Are we going to look at Jack?
Also a -8.
Yeah. Are we going to look at Jack Eichel with the Vegas Golden Knights?
Yeah.
Are we looking at Jack Eichel with the Golden Knights? Is he a star?
Yes. I
was asking you. Damn it!
I assume that was rhetorical.
Jack Eichel had 1 goal and 6 points so far in 7 games. Robert Thomas had 3 more points than him. So, sure, if you want to sit in this little area of yours and be like, Robert Thomas is overrated and he can't perform, I don't know what to help you with, man. I think you need to maybe go watch another sport.
Just full disclosure, I wouldn't say I was all on board with that a couple of years ago, and honestly, all the way up until like January of this year.
When he dominated.
But I don't know how that can be your take at this point. Robert Thomas has proven himself multiple times in the playoffs. I thought he was pretty good in this series. I didn't see what this
And he
texture...
didn't hurt, by the way.
Yeah, with one leg probably.
He also has scored 20-plus goals in each of the past 2 seasons. He's had 80-plus points each of the past 2 seasons. I think Robert Thomas is exactly what you're paying him to be. I don't think he's a superstar, and that's okay. Like, I think we hyped Thomas and Kyrou up to be something that was always unfair to them. It's just what we do, right? And I'm not talking about our show, but in general here in St. Louis, I think they were hyped to be something that they're not. They're not going to be the next version of, like, Marner and Austin Matthews. It's not coming for them, and that's okay. They can be really good players, and making $8 million a year, it's actually a pretty damn good deal for those guys, especially into their mid-20s. So I don't feel this way at all for Robert Thomas. And in fact, I think this is a massive minority when it comes to how people view him.
He had a point in every game in the playoffs, with the exception of 2 of them. If you want to find one thing to target with Robert Thomas, he should have shot the puck more. He had 3 games in 7 that he did not take a shot in. But that's been the biggest thing with Robert Thomas in his entire career. And I know what you're saying with the not a superstar, and I'm with you right now. He's 25 years old. He's had back-to-back 80-point seasons. And this season, we've talked about this on the show, he had 1 month that he missed due to an injury, and another month that he was bad. You fix those 2 months, a full season with him, you're talking about a guy who's close to 100 points.
And that's the part, real quick, that I was going to bring up, was look at what the team was without him, both on and off the ice. When he went through that little stretch, it was really like 10 games. When he went through that stretch, the Blues looked like sellers, right? It came at the worst possible time. We thought they were going to be sellers. What happens is he finds his game, and he is one of the guys that was the driving force to the Blues finding their way to the playoffs. I think it's a fair argument if you said he's not a superstar, he's just a star.
Fine.
But not he's overhyped, overrated. I disagree with that.
And the 217 responded. McKinnon, McDavid, Rantanen. Cool. If that's who you're comparing him to, I will forfeit and say that Robert Thomas is not those guys. But those guys are generational players. Those guys aren't just superstars. They're generational
that would
players.
Be my category of superstar, and maybe it's just like a labeling thing. Who cares, honestly? But like that top tier of players, whatever you describe them as, generational, superstar, whatever, he's not in that category. He's never going to be in that category, and we just have to be okay with that. Sometimes you don't get to have one of the top 5 guys in the NHL. The Blues won a cup without any of those guys on their roster. So I just think sometimes we get into this like,
trade him if we
need
bad.
A superstar. Yeah, okay, how do you get that guy? What is the path to that guy? Because there's basically 2. One, you give him $15 million a year via free agency, and most of the time those guys ain't hitting free agency, so you trade for them and then give them that deal. And 2, you suck for a decade, and then maybe you're lucky enough to be able to fall into one.
And guess what? Chicago, who sucked and got a first overall pick, is still looking for their superstar. And they thought they drafted him. They are still looking for their superstar. So there's no fixing your mindset on that with Thomas.
2 other quick things here. One, who's going to be this year's BK? Ross Colton for BK, who the Blues hope to acquire, and we're going to have to hear about them every day. Haven't found my guy yet. We'll try to see who that guy is. We'll talk about a few of them coming up in the 12 o'clock hour. And last thing here from the 217, what did you guys think about the Steelers trading Pickens to the Cowboys for draft picks? I thought it was smart. Pickens is clearly a guy that they don't want to build around. He's going into, I believe, the last year of his deal, if I'm not mistaken. Get something for him. Cowboys, I think it's smart for them, too. You got a highly motivated player. If he sucks, whatever. It's a 3rd-round pick. A lot of 3rd-round picks aren't particularly good players either. I think he's going to be productive for them. Helps their passing game. They desperately needed a wide receiver. Win-win.
Thank you for the Steelers. You have a head case that's going to be coming in Aaron Rodgers, so you need to get rid of a head case that's already in the locker room.
I thought you were talking about Metcalf.
And it does sound like Metcalf's one of them. So I don't think you can have 3 guys that are playing the same area in the game that are all head cases. So yeah, and for Dallas, dude, we'll take the head case if he makes us better.
Coming up next, should the Blues get aggressive this offseason? And if so, is this the name that we should be circling? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario. Hey, it's BK for my friends over at Victory Men's Health. It is time to unlock your inner champion. The place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. You can check out what they have to offer over at their website today, victorymenshealth.com. When you go over there, you can read about what they have to offer with low testosterone suggestions, erectile dysfunction issues, weight loss goals you're trying to meet. Maybe you want to learn more about their supplement shop, red light therapy programs, or cardiovascular testing. It's all available for you at their 4 locations across the St. Louis area: O'Fallon, Missouri, O'Fallon, Illinois, Sunset Hills, and the location that I personally go to is in Town and Country. It's a super easy process. You just go to their website, victorymenshealth.com. Put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them BK with the 101 ESPN sent you, and tell them what it is that they can do to unlock your inner champion today. Like I said, that's different things for different people. It may be low testosterone issues. You're looking at yourself, you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I don't have the same energy that I once did. I'm not getting the same out of my workouts. You can get that tested for you today over at Victory Men's Health. So book that first appointment, victorymenshealth.com. That's victorymenshealth.com. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So yesterday, Doug Armstrong, Alex, talked with the media, and he mentioned how, hey, listen, there's a lot of good players out there. A lot of them hitting free agency.
Like who?
We'll talk about that. And Doug Armstrong has money ready to go. He's got money ready to spend if that is the way that they decide to operate this offseason. He also then talked about Dvorsky and how the plan is to not rush him, and if he has a season similar to what Bolduc had, not this year, but last season, where he spent 3/4 of the year at the AHL level and then came up for a cup of coffee at the end of the season, that's not the worst thing in the world for Dalibor Dvorsky. All of this makes me think to myself, man, this sounds like a team that's going to operate in a relatively aggressive mindset heading into the offseason, trying to upgrade in areas that can make them not just a good team, but potentially even a great team in 2025 and 2026. Alex, he talked about getting 5% better. That means 100 points. That's what that means for the 2025 season. As you look at the way that they can operate this offseason, do you think they will get aggressive? And if so, what does that mean?
I do think they will get aggressive. I think the way that Doug Armstrong portrayed this team to us yesterday, if they believe that if they expect to be 5% better than what they were from last year to this year, then you expect to be a 100-point team.
Yep.
And Pete DeBoer said that after the Dallas Stars Colorado Avalanche series. He said, look, I think there are 5 100-point teams in the Central Division, and 2 of those just had a slip up this year. Minnesota and St. Louis were the other 2 teams. But if that's the way the Blues view them projecting forward, and Doug Armstrong referenced a 200-foot offensive weapon that they would like to upgrade over. That doesn't mean they will, because like he joked, a lot of the times he says something, and then when it doesn't happen, people are like, oh, he's lazy, he's not doing his job. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. But if you're wanting to be a 100-point team, and there are still years that you need development from the guys that you drafted and hope to be a part of that core, then yeah, I fully expect them to be aggressive this offseason. Does that mean they follow through and get a star or an offensive weapon? No, it doesn't. But I expect them to be in the conversations because they have cap space and they have capital to use on the trade market. Like if you look at where the Blues are at, so we talked a little bit about the cap space that they have and then Torrey Krug's money. That's sitting at about $11 million. They do also have contracts that you could potentially try and move on from. A Joseph Atexier, that's another $5 million. So, yeah, I look at what the Dallas Stars did. You know, after 2018, 2019, when they got bounced by the Blues in the second round, they won the first round versus the Predators. They went out there and they signed Joe Pavelski that offseason, who was available from the San Jose Sharks. They signed him as a free agent, and then they made it to the Stanley Cup final. And then every single year, they continued to find ways to improve. They brought in Matt Duchene, they brought in Alex Radulov, and then we just saw them go out there and get Mikko Rantanen. I wonder if the Dallas Stars were able to operate that way and still develop, have the pieces in place, but stay aggressive. I believe the Blues will be doing the same thing because now they have the opportunity of wiggle room with cap space.
I think this is an aggressive offseason. I think that could be on the trade market, could be in free agency. I'm not entirely sure which direction they plan to go. Yesterday, Jamie Rivers was on the fast lane, and he talked about the direction that he thinks they should go, and he would target a specific guy in free agency. Take a listen. T-Bone has this ready to go for us in 3.
Jamie was talking about this guy, and he said
1.
this name.
Here we go.
If I'm Army, I want Sam Bennett from the Florida Panthers. He's going to be unrestricted free agent at the end of this year. The Panthers are going to try and hang on to him. They've got quite a few guys making a lot of money down there, so who knows? But Sam Bennett brings you, 30 goals, 70-some points. So imagine down your center ice if you had Thomas, Bennett, Shen, Foxa. You've got some grit there. Sam Bennett's a proven playoff player, a gritty player. That guy gets to the hard inside ice, plays good defensively. And it's not going to cost as much as like a Mitch Marner. I like that kind of an addition. He's a St. Louis Blues type player.
All right. I like Sam Bennett. Let me just put this out there. If we want to talk about Sam Bennett, the player, would I like to add him to the St. Louis Blues? Let's go around the room real quick. Would you like to add, forget every piece of context, would the Blues be better if they had Sam Bennett? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We are all in full agreement with that. But there's context that is necessary here. And I'm not telling Jamie that he's wrong. I promise you that is not what I'm saying here. There could be disagreements on players, on values, all of those different things. That's the nature of the offseason. GMs around the league will disagree about the value of a player like Sam Bennett. Here's the thing. Sam Bennett, to me, while valuable and a good player that I would love to add for the St. Louis Blues, the projection right now via the Daily Faceoff is a 6-year deal for more than $6 million per season. He's entering his age 29 season, Alex, and he is a guy that has consistently in his career been more of a 20-goal scorer than a 30-goal scorer. He is more of a 50-point producer, traditionally speaking, than a 70-plus point producer. In fact, he has never in a season had more than 51 points in a year. So this is not your superstar level player. This is basically grittier, bigger version of Brandon Saad. That's what we're talking about here. He's more physical. This playing styles couldn't be more different, but the overall results generally are kind of similar to what you got out of Brandon Saad or what you were expecting to get out of Brandon Saad when you signed him. So for me, while I would like to sign Sam Bennett, I would like to sign Sam Bennett for a 4-year deal and for $5 million per year. But given the bump in cap and given the number of teams that want to add this style of player with a winning pedigree, all that comes along with him, the grittiness, the fighting, all of that, I think 6 might even be low. I think this could be this year's version of Chandler Stevenson, who ends up getting a 7-year, $7+ million deal per season. And that, to me, is not something that I would be interested in the Blues signing up for.
Here's my problem with Sam Bennett. One, I don't think he's the 200-foot weapon that Doug Armstrong referenced, because when you're talking 200 foot, you're talking about a guy who's good defensively just as much as he is offensively. And I mean, if you look at how they use Sam Bennett, they exclusively use him in the offensive zone on faceoffs, and he's not a penalty killer. The other factor with Sam Bennett, and I feel like we do this sometimes where we see a name on a team and we're like, oh, that guy will be great. Let's also remember who he's playing with. Do you believe you have a Matthew Tkachuk in your organization?
I would love to have a Matthew Tkachuk in this organization.
We don't have to go down that road again. We could have had him. But anyway, do you believe you have a Sam Reinhart or a Carter Verhaeghe or a Alex Barkov?
I do think you have some of those guys.
I do. I agree with that. But Sam Bennett is playing with a prime Matthew Tkachuk and is still a 20 to 25 goal scorer. If you look at the last 3 seasons, he has scored 20 goals for you. Again, I like Sam Bennett. I brought Sam Bennett up on this show before, but that's when I thought this team needed more of a pulse, more of a aggressiveness. They found that this season, so I'm not sure that's what they need as much. But the last 3 seasons, he's averaged 20 goals per game. And if you're not good, if you don't play on the penalty kill, if you're not great at the faceoff dot, and if you're not really used in the defensive end, I don't know how much of an offensive 200-foot weapon you are. I think there are other guys out there that match more of what Doug Armstrong is looking for. Because let's be honest, we saw where this team's flaws were this season. When Dylan Holloway was injured, they lost an entire line. They lost an entire line's effectiveness in the offensive zone. And, frankly, that line wasn't very good defensively for you. You're looking for somebody who impacts the game on both ends of the ice, and I don't believe Sam Bennett is that.
Let me ask this a different way. Maybe this will present it to us in a way that either gets us more interested in Sam Bennett or less. I honestly don't know. Would you have signed Braden Shin, knowing what we know now? Would you have signed him in 2020, coming off of COVID, to a 6 or 7 year, $7 to $8 million per year contract? The reason why is because, man, they've had remarkably similar careers prior to that. Mm-hmm. Like, you look at what the last 5 years were for Shin, that could be what the next 5 years look like for Sam Bennett.
And that's the other thing with Bennett. You're not just signing Sam Bennett for the now. If this team was ready to win a Stanley Cup next year, I'd be all aboard this train, and I'll deal with what the back end looks like. Sam Bennett, when you're in a winning window, because remember, there's a difference, in my opinion, of being in a competitive window and a winning window. And the competitive window may be open now. The winning window might not be for 3 years. He's going to be 34 years old. Is he the same player then that he is now? And he's not getting $6.5 million. For a guy that's on a playoff team that might be in the Stanley Cup final again this year, he's going to be talking about 7+.
I mean, it reminds me so much of what Chandler Stevenson was last year.
And do you think Seattle's cool with that deal right now?
No, they don't feel good about it. He got a massive deal, and it was way long. That was the biggest surprise of last offseason. And I think the same thing is probably going to be true with Sam Bennett this offseason. When I think of, like, if the Blues were to sign this, I would not criticize them necessarily. I'd be like, I get it. I understand how you get yourself there. He would not be the guy for me that I am targeting. But I totally understand why this would be somebody that a team is interested in. Like, think about the number of teams that were interested in Braden Shin at 33 years old at this year's trade deadline. He was a highly sought after commodity. And it's possible if you signed Sam Bennett in 3 years from now, you're like, I don't know that we still have the need for Sam Bennett. That's a guy you could trade then, because that contract might not age particularly poorly. So I would not be like all out on that move. It's just not the guy that I would necessarily be targeting. And one of the reasons why I would be okay with it for the most part, the age range is right. He's 28 years old, so he's in that prime of his career range. Guys that fit into this, Alex, and I do want to talk about this a little bit more on the other side. Guys that fit into that mix that are on that are on this year's free agent market. Mitch Marner, he's at the top of the class. He's going to get like $12 to $14 million per season. You've got Brock Besser, 28 years old, Sam Bennett, 28 years old, and Nikolai Ehlers, 29 years old. All different players. They all go about it differently. I would say they're all kind of in that same grouping of players, age range, category of what they're going to get paid, etc. And then you've got a third grouping of players in that age range, Ryan Donato, Trent Frederick, Alex Mangiapane. That's kind of it. So if you're looking at a free agent player this offseason, and Army made it pretty clear he thinks there's good players hitting free agency this offseason that he'd be interested in signing, I bet you it'd be one of those 7. Mm-hmm. I'd be pretty surprised if it is a player, given what he talked about, 200-foot offense that they're trying to add, given the age range that they have gone after in recent seasons. That's probably the list of guys that they're looking at. I want to talk about who else on that list would be interesting to you if it's not Sam Bennett. We'll do that next year on 101 ESPN. He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. We talked about Jamie Rivers' idea of like the ideal offseason addition. He said it's Sam Bennett. That's the guy he wants. I think, Alex, I could be wrong here. I feel like that's the name that I see come up on our text line most often over the last couple of days.
Yeah, and I think it's mostly because he's available and he does play a Blues style. Jamie's absolutely correct. He is a prototypical St. Louis Blues player.
You watch him in the playoffs over the past few years, you're like, damn, I want that guy.
Which, by the way, he's going through some controversy right now, which he's had in the past because he ran into Anthony Stolarz, and then the question was it purposeful? Didn't talk to the media the other day. So he's a great guy in the locker room, apparently, because he's been on winning teams.
Everybody loves him in the locker room.
That's the narrative with Sam Bennett right now.
Sure. Play a little bit like teetering on that edge. I'm fine with that.
We know how teams treat players when they teeter on the edge, according to Winnipeg fans with Braden Shen.
Yeah, if you like lean aggressive, you lean physical, and sometimes that means you go a little bit beyond. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's part of the game, right? So like
Corey Perry made a Hall of Fame career over it.
100%. He's not a guy that I would shy away from for those reasons, but it is relevant context here. It wouldn't be my first choice. I would totally get it if this is the direction that the Blues went. That's kind of my top line takeaway for Sam Bennett. I would not have a problem with it, just not my first choice necessarily. Alex, I mentioned going into you're coming out of the last segment. There are 7 guys that kind of match the description of what Army has talked about. Mm-hmm. He wants guys that are in their late 20s. You're not trying to sign like a 34-year-old player necessarily right now that's only going to be around for a year or two.
Unless you're Ryan Suter.
Sure, yeah. But this offseason, he talks about how he doesn't necessarily want a stopgap.
Yeah.
He wants somebody that's going to be around for a little while, whether that's trade or free agency. In the free agent market, those players are Mitch Marner, Brock Besser, Sam Bennett, who we just mentioned, Nikolai Ehlers, and then Ryan Donato, Trent Frederick, Alex Mangiapane. Those last 3 names are very different than the first 4 that I mentioned. When you look at the market, and you have to take into account, what they're going to get paid as well. What are the names that you're most interested in, Alex?
So, obviously, the first one that everybody's going to go to is Mitch Marner. And I am interested in that. The question is Mitch Marner interested in that? And would the Blues be willing to pay that money? Because they could make the cap work. There's going to be some finagling. That's more of the offensive weapon that I think they're talking about. I love your opinion on Nikolai Ehlers. That's the one that I kind of circled when they said it. My only hesitancy with Ehlers is our buddy Ryan Ditto-Shack out in Winnipeg. He did tell us, look, Ehlers is an incredible player. Ehlers never stays healthy.
Yeah.
In his last 5 years, he's had 1 year where he played more than 70 games. So that, to me, is problematic, especially when you're getting up in age. Brock Besser is another one that I do think is worth considering, and I know he had that 40-goal season and then has never been anywhere near that, but Brock Besser is a finisher. And Brock Besser also dealt with the soap opera that was Vancouver and scored 25 goals. To me, those are the names that are worth considering in free agency this year. There's some lower-level guys that you could bring up. You mentioned Ryan Donato. I think there's a couple of guys out there that you could look at. I would actually go more in the trade market. And the hard part is...
Before you go there,
yeah,
most of the names that we just mentioned are wingers.
Yeah.
Does this team need another top 6 winger?
As of now, people would say, no, you need a centerman. But here's my only pushback with that. You're signing a centerman for now, but in 2 years, at best, or at worst 2 years, maybe at best, that winger is going to be pushed, or that center is going to be pushed to the wing. If you believe Dalibor Dvorsky is a top 6, middle 6 center.
Or Shen is.
Sure. My guess, though, is they would prefer to keep Shen at the center position because of how he plays.
Shen's contract's also up
2 years. Yeah, but that's when the conversation's there. And yeah, you might be right.
Maybe Dvorsky just takes Shen's spot.
Could be. Do you need another winger? No. But if it's a difference maker, I think where you need another winger is at that top line with Robert Thomas. Okay. That was your problem. So Ehlers and Marner, in my opinion, and even a Brock Besser, to me, they're difference makers. But yes, I would prefer a centerman, which, to my point on the trade, I would be looking at the Buffalo Sabres and calling about Ryan McLeod. For those that don't know, he's a 25-year-old centerman who was in the Edmonton Oilers organization. They traded him last year to Buffalo for a prospect because they needed to stockpile their minor league system when they weren't able to keep Holloway and Broberg. But last year in the playoffs for Edmonton, he scored 4 goals in that run to the Stanley Cup final. Last year, he had 12 goals as a fourth-line centerman. This year for Buffalo, he was used in the middle 6 and had 20 goals and was a plus 13. This guy's 25 years old, and he was a former second-round draft pick. He's 6'3", 195 pounds. He's big. He's good down the middle. Last year, he was 54% in the faceoff dot. They use him on the penalty kill. They use him on the power play. To me, I'm going this route. And why I'm targeting this guy, he's an RFA. You can't offer sheet him because I don't think you got the draft capital to do that. Buffalo's not in a bad cap space. Buffalo also needs difference makers, and they need to change some things. So this would be the idea of what I'm looking at, of targeting somebody like this, because this is a natural centerman. This is a guy that you can look at and you say, hey, I could see you as a top 6 and middle 6 at the back end of your career, but you're in our age bracket. These are the guys that if I'm Doug Armstrong, I'm going to be aggressive with and finding ways to trade.
I really like that idea. Now, whether it's him or this is just the idea of what you're going after, right, is some mid-20s RFA guy that's coming to the end of his time in a different market, and they're looking for an upgrade potentially, and you view it as a hockey trade, right? This is a really interesting one. He's got upside offensively. He is a true, like, defensive, responsible type of a player. Plays 17 minutes a night already. Now, he's not coming from a winning organization in Buffalo, but he was playing for a winning organization with Edmonton. So I think that's something that does appeal to somebody like Army. He talked about that in his press conference yesterday. He wants to add players that have been in that winning locker room before. Yep. They are just guys that pick up on things that you don't necessarily get if you're in a losing organization.
And if I'm not mistaken, let me double check this, but I believe McLeod played with Dylan Holloway at times in that playoff run. And here's the question that I know a lot of people would ask. Well, Alex, if he's this great, why would they get rid of him? Well, here's part of the wondering from me. Everybody around the NHL is scared of offer sheets because of what Doug Armstrong just did this last year. And again, Buffalo's got $21 million in cap space, so they're not hurting for the ability to re-sign guys. But they traded for a 26-year-old centerman from Ottawa this past year in Josh Norris. They have Tage Thompson. Right now, Ryan McLeod's a third-line center for him. And as an RFA, you're probably paying this guy with the cap going up $4 to $5 million. They also have to re-sign J.J. Peterka, who is one of their top winging goal scorers. They have a 23-year-old Jack Quinn, and they have Bo Byram. They're going to have to spend money on a lot of other players that aren't priority. And we just saw what happened to a team that doesn't have the players at the ready to re-sign if they're worried about other areas of their team. So I don't know if they'd be willing to trade this guy, but right now Buffalo needs help everywhere. They need goaltending help. They need forward help. They need defensive help. So, yeah, I can absolutely see a pending RFA who's 26 years old, who's probably due to make about $4 or $5 million, get traded, because that's a lot of money to pay for a third-line center if you're Buffalo.
I'm looking this up right now. Do you remember what he was traded for last year?
Yeah, Matt Savoie. He was a prospect in Buffalo's system, and Edmonton made that trade because after the Holloway and Broberg thing, they were like, hey, we need to stockpile some younger players.
Gotcha. The only reason I ask is just because the price is going to go up this year compared to what it was a year ago, but I wonder what it would take for the Blues to pry him away. It's possible. I'm not doing this to push anybody out, but I'm only mentioning the name because to get something, you have to give something, right? It's possible they would be like, hey, we need a winger that is cost-controlled. Maybe a Zach Bolduc makes more sense for Buffalo, and McLeod is able to stabilize things in the middle 6 center position for the Blues.
People aren't going to like this, but you know what they really need? A goaltender. Guess who you've got as an RFA goaltender?
Oh, I thought you were doing bidding.
No, shut up.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's it, but so I looked at this from the playoffs last year. McLeod played with Evander Kane and Warren Fagel for a lot of that playoffs. He did play a little bit with Dylan Holloway. It was Holloway, Kane, and Perry that played together, but the best offensive line in the playoffs that played around 80 minutes together was McLeod, Kane, and Fogle that averaged about 5.99 goals per 60 minutes.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show from the 618. Guys, at some point, don't you have to stagger some of these contracts and the ages that you have? You can't have all of the guys needing to get paid at the same time. No doubt, yeah, but that's kind of what they're doing right now. Part of what has helped with this retool process for the Blues is that they already had some of those older veterans that are coming up for deals sooner rather than later. So, like, next year, Nick Leddy's deal is up. The year after that, I believe it's Shin and Falk, if I'm not mistaken. And technically, you've got the
Fowler.
The Krug deal as well, but that's just cash, not necessarily cap. Fowler coming off of the books as well. So you've got a lot of guys that are coming off of the books sooner rather than later. Bennington in a few years as well. So that helps to make up for the players that are about to get paid. So as you have some that are ascending, you have others that fall off the books. The Blues are in a pretty good cap situation right now.
Yeah, well, and because I'm seeing a lot of people over on our graveyard chat saying there's no way they're trading Hofer. Why would you trade Hofer, Alex? Here's the only reason, and I don't think they want to. Here's the only reason I'm bringing up. Binnington's got 2 more years, and he's going to be the number 1 guy. If he's here, he's the number 1 guy. Hofer's going to play about 35 to 40 games. That's what we typically know that they like to do. Hofer's 24 years old. Colton Ellis is 24 years old. Now, Colton Ellis has not played 1 game in the NHL, but this past year, he was the number 1 guy for the Thunderbirds. And if you look at the trajectory of how they treated Hofer, he went from not being the backup, then he was getting a little taste of the NHL, to this season, he was their number 1 backup. So, again, maybe Colton Ellis is the guy that gets traded.
I was about to say, maybe it is Ellis that's the name that ends up getting
Could be, but Colton Ellis was one of the best. I think he was top 3 last year in save percentage in the American Hockey League, and he's 24 years old. And if you're Buffalo, I know people are saying Buffalo doesn't need a goaltender. Buffalo needs goaltending because Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is not the guy that's going to get them to the playoffs again. So that might be the path for this. And this goes to the question that T-Bone asked, which we might get to later. I think the Blues have arsenal everywhere if they want to weaponize their team to make trades.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Just for those that are curious, what are some of the projected contracts for these guys that we've discussed here? Mitch Marner, according to the Daily Faceoff, and I think some of these numbers are pretty low personally, but this is what they had. Mitch Marner is projected to get an 8-year deal worth $12.5 per year. I think that's probably going to be closer to 14 personally, but it is what it is. Brock Besser, 7 by 9. Sam Bennett, 6 by 6.5. Nikolai Ehlers, 6 by 7.5. And then the 3 others that are in that 20-plus age range. Ryan Donato, 2 by 2.5. Trent Frederick, 4 years, $4 million per year, essentially the Brandon Saad deal. And Alex Mangiapane, 4 years, $5 million per season. It's not going to be cheap to go out there and make this addition. It's going to cost probably 6+ years, $7+ million per year. That's what the Blues have to be committed to. If they go to free agency, I think Alex's idea of going to the trade market makes some more sense. And then it just becomes a question of who is that player. Coming up next, the Cardinals are pivoting again with their left-handed bats. Is this the right move? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londaw Chevrolet and Johnny Londaw Autoplex. Cardinals currently in action as they're taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates, looking to complete the sweep of the Buccos. 0-0 our score in the top of the third. Sonny Gray's getting the start for St. Louis. Mitch Keller's on the mound for the Pirates. And Nolan Arenado was originally in the Cardinals starting lineup today, but he was scratched just before first pitch due to back spasms. We'll keep you updated on the Cardinals game throughout the day today here on 101 ESPN. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londaw Chevrolet and Johnny Londaw Autoplex. CMilano.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Driven down the left field line. That ball is fair into the corner. One run scores. Contreras on his way around. Here he comes. The Pirates mishandle the relay. Burleson doubles the other way, and the Cardinals take a 2-1 lead.
Alec Burleson starting to heat up. Looks like a better version of himself with Alex and T-Bone on BK. Alex, the Cardinals are pivoting again. They are now going back to Alec Burleson as the primary left-handed bat that's getting those opportunities at the DH spot. They previously had committed to Nolan Gorman in that spot, but guess what? When you don't produce at all in your opportunities, somebody else is going to get a chance. And right now, that person is Alec Burleson. Yesterday, I was listening to Ollie Marmol. He was on with another radio show in town, and he was asked about, hey, when Ivan Herrera gets back, somebody's going to have to miss out on opportunities. It's probably one of those left-handed bats. Who's that player going to be? And the answer was, well, it's probably going to be Nolan Gorman. He's probably the one that takes the back seat because recently, Alec Burleson has been hitting the ball well. In his last 5 games, he's 5 for 19, has a double and 2 home runs in those opportunities. That's a guy you want to keep in the lineup. Meanwhile, Nolan Gorman can't stop striking out. And he's not making enough contact to make up for all of the issues that come along with him. He also just doesn't have a lot of value on the bases. He doesn't have a lot of value defensively right now. There's not enough you can point to say that's keeping you in the lineup. So Alec Burleson's the guy that's going to get those opportunities. Alex, we talked about this briefly in the first hour. How do you feel about the way that the Cardinals have approached some of these young bats, most specifically Burleson and Gorman, with their opportunities they're getting?
I like it. I think they're doing it the right way. And I know the whole give them a little bit of a leash, and then when they play poorly, you pull them out. But why would they do that if you're trying to get an extended look at them? I think for those two guys specifically, it's kind of typecasted the role. The difference is Jordan Walker's in the outfield every single day despite him being bad is because they deem him to be an everyday outfielder. It feels like Nolan Gorman's role isn't an everyday position because they got a lot of guys in the future that are going to be everyday positions, whether it's JC or Weatherholt. And then with Burleson, you've got your first baseman, you've got your DH, you might even have your future first baseman if it's Ivan Herrera. And the other factor into this, specifically with Nolan Gorman, is, dude, you've had the leeway. You've had the leash, and it hasn't worked. And now you're going to have to go through the mental side of this game and this career path of, hey, when you struggle, you're going to have to figure it out, but you're going to figure it out without the at-bats, which I know sounds kind of harsh, but that might be the role you're in moving forward. If you're not an everyday player because Weatherholt has taken the second base spot or Sajasi has taken the third place spot, or if Brendan Donovan is playing in that second base spot, then where are you falling into this? Well, if you want to be the everyday DH, well, you got to outplay Ivan Herrera or Alec Burleson or Wilson Contreras. So this might be the role you're in. And to get at bats, you've got to be ready at every single situation possible. It does feel like a little bit of a test for both of these guys.
Yeah, I like how they've handled the left-handed bats and the way they've pivoted. The reason I brought that up when we were talking about Graceffo was it was weird how it felt like the offseason was about creating opportunities for Gorman, and then they came into the season and started with Burleson. I like the fact that they're kind of starting to pivot away from him because it is clear right now Burleson is the bat that you have to play. I also look at Nolan Gorman, and it just looks like it's not going to work for him. And you mentioned he's striking out a lot, and he's not making contact. It's not that he's just striking out a lot and not making contact. He's not even hitting for power, right? It'd be one thing if it was, hey, he's hitting like 175, but at least when he makes contact, he's hitting for extra bases. His slugging percentage is 302 coming into today.
By the way, I said he's striking out a lot. He's actually like really cut down on his strikeout rate this year compared to what it has
Gorman?
been. Yeah. It's at 27% right now for context. Last year it was at 38%. He's making contact much more. He's walking much more. And the quality of that contact is worse than it's ever been for him.
I feel like he's walking a lot more.
Yeah. Maybe that is just something where, hey, he's going through a rough month, maybe this is something we look back on in a month and say, oh, well, we should have known that the power was eventually going to come for Nolan Gorman.
I don't know, man.
But you're right. There's no excuse not to play Alec Burleson right now, especially when Herrera comes back. There will be an odd man out. It has to be Gorman. And I agree with what Alex is saying. Look, yeah, that means you got to figure it out on the bench. That's freaking hard to do. It's why the Cardinals sent down Sajacy, because they don't want guys that they view as everyday players to just sit on the bench. It's hard to stay ready in that case. But if you're Nolan Gorman, you've put yourself into this position. This is not a Cardinals did this to you. You had an opportunity. We gave you some runway when Burleson was struggling, and you didn't take advantage of it. And now Burleson has got the same opportunity right back in reverse, and he's taking advantage of it. He gets the opportunity he is awarded for his good play.
I like the way that they're operating this season. With regards to guys earning their opportunities. I thought it was pretty cool that they gave Victor Scott that chance on opening day. I disagreed with it. I wouldn't have necessarily done it, but I thought it was pretty cool that they gave him that opportunity. And in spring training, Nolan Gorman was terrible. So what'd they do? Victor Scott's in center, and Alec Burleson's going to get those opportunities from the left side first. And then eventually they switched it over, and hey, now Gorman's going to get some of these chances. And then he struggled, so they go back to Burleson. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride to get to where we are today. But now that Burleson is hitting, it's time for him to get this chance. He's earned that opportunity, and we'll see what he does with it. And if he goes through another struggle the way that he did for the first, 3 to 4 weeks of the season, you'll probably see another chance for Nolan Gorman to get those opportunities. The reason why this is important right now is because Ivan Herrera is returning. And whenever he does get back into the lineup, that takes one more spot where it is everyday playing time that is going to be dried up. Because that guy is going to be in there all the time, and it's not just at catcher. When he gets back, it's probably 1 out of every 3 games is behind the plate, and then the other 2 games are the DH spot. That's where Gorman's been getting any of his opportunities lately. When you look at his playing time, it feels like he hasn't been getting as many opportunities lately. Dude, you go back to 3 weeks ago, he's missed a total in terms of starting opportunities of 4 games for the Cardinals, and 2 of those came against left-handed pitchers. So he's been getting the opportunities. He just ain't take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's on you.
That's the thing. I mean, we're saying the same thing about Jordan Walker. This is the year where I'm not going to be pointing fingers at Ollie or anybody else. This is on you, man. You've got to figure this out. I think there's a lot of guys that are in that category, and I am glad the Cardinals are treating it that way, because in the past it's been the whole, let's send them down and figure it out. Stop doing that. Put these guys in the position, and if they fail, then you found out who they are. But give them the opportunity to succeed, like we've seen with Victor Scott, like we've seen with Masyn Winn, and honestly, like we've seen a little with Lars Nootbaar.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We got this from the 618. Guys, BK, just say you were horribly wrong about Victor Scott. Horribly. Reward him out of spring training and keep Siani in the minors where he belongs. Yes, not only will I say that, I have said that. I was incredibly wrong about Victor Scott. He's been one of the brightest spots of the Cardinals season thus far. He just walked again and then scored on a double. The guy has been absolutely amazing, and he's great theater to watch. You look at any of the nerdy numbers, guys, he's leading the team in wins above replacement right now. And that's with the team that has Brendan Donovan, who's batting .340 and plays quality defense, is a plus player on the base paths. What we have seen from Victor Scott so far this year has been nothing short of miraculous. He's been amazing. So, yeah, if you need me to shout it from the mountaintops even more, I will continue to say I was dead wrong about Victor Scott, and I'm so glad they brought him to the big league club on opening day, and he has earned every ounce of this opportunities that he's been given. So, yeah, totally.
Maybe we should have listened more to Victor Scott when he said that he's Willie McGee and Masyn Winn's Ozzie Smith. Those guys are on to something.
I guess. He's been great.
2 Hall of Famers, am I right?
Probably. Potentially $100 million man as well.
Oh, well, that's not good.
Did you guys see that today? Jeff Passan wrote over on ESPN.com about the next $100 million players in Major League Baseball, and
not if T-Bone has any say.
Was mentioned for the Cardinals. I found that to be pretty interesting.
T-Bone.
Said, nobody should question Wynn's defensive bona fides. His bat will determine his financial ceiling, and Winn has plenty of time to develop. What's important to remember is that he plays a position that gets paid in free agency. He'll turn just 28 before opening day in 2030. If Winn is even slightly above average offensively, that's a $100 million player. If he's anything more, the number could be massive, end quote.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, T-Bone, but walk him up to free agency, am I right?
Yeah.
This is why I talked about potentially Masyn Winn being a candidate that you look to extend. Because I know T-Bone disagrees with me on this, but the numbers that the organizations use will value Masyn Winn in a serious way. And if you let him get to free agency, he might end up outperforming what you're willing to spend on him. And T-Bone might be okay with that. I'm not sure if the Cardinals are or not. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. The Juncture is next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, time to dive into the junk drawer. T-Bone, what do you got for us today?
Guys, have you heard of a company called Joby? J-O-B-Y?
Jobu. And he didn't help them get to the second round.
No, he did not. So there's this company called Joby that is hoping to start, I believe it would be the first air taxi service in the U.S. And all it is it's like a little helicopter, essentially. You got the first row is just the pilot. Then there's 2 rows for 2 people on each, so it can hold 4 people.
Okay.
Can travel up to 200 miles per hour. It is supposedly quieter than a helicopter, and it can travel 150 miles per a charge. They are hoping to launch their first flight of this taxi kind of helicopter service starting by the end of 2025. Are you guys
Is
in?
this taking me like city to city? Like I could go to different cities, states?
You said 150 miles was the...
150 miles is the range for a
So you're
charge.
talking about like downtown St. Louis to Columbia.
Yeah.
Is basically the distance that they're capable of.
Or to Olney, Illinois, if you wanted to go visit the home of the White Squirrels.
Sure.
Yikes.
I don't know where you're landing there, but
I'm definitely interested. If money was no object, I would
Yeah, I was
use
going to say, this sounds very expensive.
The problem is, I have to imagine this is outlandishly expensive. Does it
Thousands
say
of
what the
dollars.
it doesn't,
typical
which
price
is probably
Yeah.
a hint that this is expensive.
Well, you're paying for flight fuel, which is very expensive.
Zero operating emissions. This is an all-electric aircraft.
Oh, no. Nope,
interesting.
I'm out. Nope, I'm out.
What? That is what you're out
because
on?
somebody forgets to charge it, and the next thing you go, woo, nope, I'm out.
I don't think that's the case.
Yeah,
I mean,
would
helicopters
definitely
already
be
creep me
interested
out.
Yeah, I don't know how much this is. Again, they didn't put a price tag on, so maybe they're still trying to figure it out. But I would totally be in on this because now, like, if you were to go, I don't know, somewhere in Chicago, say, and I know that it's Chicago, but imagine taking an Uber, say you're just going across Chicago, taking an Uber there, that can be like an hour compared to if you did a helicopter,
Sure.
it's like probably 5 minutes, 10 minutes, tops.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what they end up charging for this. Again, I would have to imagine it's insane that the cost per opportunity to
I'll
fly.
stick with driving.
But yeah, if I was somebody that was like a multimillionaire and I lived in Chicago, New York, LA, and I can avoid the potential for spending an hour plus in the car to go like 5 miles down the road, yes, I would absolutely be interested in using these. I do have some follow-up questions that lean into another different direction where it's like, yeah, but what about the air traffic control situation? There's a lot of stuff going on.
See, he always turns it political. Send it to break.
I should've done
Do
my
the flying
tattoo
taxis,
story.
maybe add other problems beyond just
are you
like
still
solving
talking about
the
it?
issue that we have right now.
Can we stop it?
I feel like there are some other issues that might have to be
In
worked out.
no
in all
way,
of
shape, or
this.
form do other members of BK and Ferrario stand in the same political view that Brandon Kiley does.
Or maybe you do, maybe you don't. Doesn't matter. Coming up next, the Blues.
We are not associated.
Should the Blues do with Fowler what they did with Leddy and previously what they did with Masyn Scandella, or do you wait this thing out? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So, Alex, I would say one of the biggest things that we've heard from Blues fans is, one, they got to go sign Sam Bennett. Two, you've got to extend Cam Fowler this offseason. Cam Fowler was great for the Blues down the stretch. He was arguably the best defenseman in the first round, not just for the Blues, but for any team. He was certainly the most productive when it comes to points. He's also 33. And he's going to turn 34 next season. He has 1 year remaining on his contract, so he is eligible to talk contract extension for the Blues heading into this offseason. Cam Fowler was asked about this yesterday at the podium, and he said, yeah, I'm definitely interested in talking about that with the Blues. I loved my experience here. I would love to stay here long term.
Look at that. Way to go, Blues.
This is something that they decided to do with Nick Leddy. They did the same thing with Marco Scandella. You see them for a portion of the season. You like what we saw, especially when they were paired with Colton Parayko. And then you go into a multi-year extension with with Leddy and with Marco Scandella. Should they do the same thing this offseason with Fowler, in your opinion?
So I wouldn't unless it's favorable to the Blues. And what I mean by that is this a team-friendly deal that you're going to look back on and be like, look, even if he's bad, it's not going to hurt the team. And the only reason I'm on that front is because he is an offensive defenseman. He's good two-way, but he's an offensive defenseman. And Leddy and Scandella, you were signing for their defensive prowess, and that obviously did not carry over. Sometimes offense does carry over with defensemen as they get older. We've seen that a lot in the NHL. I'm not doing it now, though. If I'm the Blues, and I know that Cam Fowler loved it here, and hey, that's awesome, man. I need to see it again. And if you can do this at the start of the season, showcase the ability to keep the offense going, look like you're somebody that's just going to continue to get better at age. Because, look, we've seen guys get better with age. Alex Pietrangelo is still playing top-level hockey, and Fowler's put up some very good numbers in his career. Then December next year, or December this year, before the end of the year, I'll go to him and say, now let's talk extension. Once I'm able to see that this wasn't just a flash in the pan. They did this with Jay Bouwmeester. Bouwmeester was 35, I think, the years old, if I'm not mistaken, coming off of a 5-year deal. Yeah, and they gave him 1 year, $3.5 million. Now, of course, he had those heart issues and then had to retire. But my guess, if he didn't have those heart issues, they would have still continued to give him 1 year deal until he retired. So, look, if this looks good by Fowler, yeah, I'm okay approaching him for another multi-year deal to see maybe if we can continue doing this. And you're still not rushing the younger defensemen like the Lindstein that believe you can be a top pair or top four defenseman. I'm not doing it now, though. I want to see if this continues into next season before I can give that to you.
Do you think Dmitry Orlov is a fair comparison? 33 years old, consistently like a 30 to 40 point producer, plays top 4 minutes previously with Washington, now is doing so with Carolina. Is that a fair comparison in your opinion?
I think so. My only hesitancy with that is he's not a power play guy. Like, he's not a guy that is quarterbacking the power play like Fowler is, and Fowler has been. Like, the one that I was thinking of was Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and top pair defenseman with Arizona. He gets moved around a little bit. And then this year he signed as kind of like a free agent that just wasn't on anybody's team. But I think he got a pretty big deal with Toronto in the past. That's the one that came to mind for me, who's also up there in age.
The reason I bring up Orlov, and it's not perfect, you're right, is because I've got a projection on his contract for this offseason from Daily Faceoff. He's 33 years old, so similar in terms of age range. And like I said, it's not a perfect one for one, but they're projecting a 3-year deal worth $5 million per season for Dmitry Orlov. That's basically in line with Cam Fowler's current cap hit for the Blues, $4.5 million. Would you be open to an extension of 2 more years at $5 million per year? So it becomes that 3-year, $5 million per year contract that Orlov is expected to get this offseason.
Yeah, as long as that AAV isn't north of $4.5 million.
So, but 2 by 5, $5 million per year.
I wouldn't do that.
Because if I'm Fowler, I'm not taking less than Orlov gets this offseason.
No, you're right. So Oliver Ekman-Larsson's the one that I brought up. He just signed a 4-year, $14 million deal with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's 33 years old, a little fewer points than Cam Fowler, but he's also been on some pretty bad teams. But that's 4 years, $3.5 million per year. If I can do something around that with Cam Fowler, yeah, I would probably do that right now. If he
I don't think he's doing that. Do you?
I just don't know. I mean, you're 33 years old. You're not getting any big contracts going because typically defensemen don't go past 36, 37 years old and you're just getting 1-year deals. And if you're Fowler, I'm looking at this saying, man, I just played on an Anaheim Ducks team that was bad for a long time. And now
you got a family.
And this team is going to be heading north. I might have a shot at a Stanley Cup by the time I turn 36, 37 years old if I keep my play up. So, yeah. And remember, he had a no trade clause and chose that he was cool with signing here. Mm-hmm. Depending on where he wants to go, he's picking that. So I don't know if he would just shoo that away. If you're him, I probably want to get back to what I'm making right now for the Blues. I don't want to go below that. But if I could get 3 years at $4 million for Cam Fowler, I probably would consider that. I just want to see what it looks like at the beginning of the season.
And for the Blues, he's right at $4 million in terms of his cap hit for the Blues. I think I would just wait. Like, if I'm the Blues, I would probably just say, you know what? We'll see what this looks like in February, March of next year. We get to like that all-star break time where the Blues sometimes do get some of those extensions done. They've done that in the past. I think that's probably when I'm talking about a potential contract extension with Fowler. I just don't like giving extensions that aren't totally necessary to guys in their early to mid-30s. I'm willing to do that. If you're in your 20s, we can talk about this all day. Like, you want to hand out a 8-year deal with Broberg? Let's do it, baby. You want to throw another 8-year deal at Holloway? Cool, I'm in. You want to extend Radek Faksa this offseason when you have to give him some kind of a contract because he's a true unrestricted free agent. I'm willing to do that. Like, you want to talk about what it's going to be like with Hofer? Cool, I'm in. I get really nervous with mid-30s defensemen because this stuff can go quick, man. Mm-hmm. And I'm not expecting that from Fowler. He was great for you this season. But I never know when it's going to drop. And if you give him a 2 to 3 year extension before you need to, and then next season it does drop a little bit, and you already start to see a decline in his play, I don't know. That would make me very nervous if I'm in the Blue shoes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be
$4 million. Like, it's also what is that, a third pair defenseman contract?
Oh, yeah, especially with the cap going up. That's a seventh defenseman.
I get the appeal.
You know what's crazy about it though, and you're right when you said like, Broberg, you want to talk 8-year deal? Let's do it. Fowler is more of a proven player than what Broberg is.
Sure, but I'm trying to get in on the low.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I think it's so funny because, like, you know what Fowler is. You've seen it throughout his entire career. You know he's going to give you close to 10 goals and a lot of points, and he's a really good 200-foot player. It's why I'm not going to be mad if they announce that they signed Cam Fowler to a contract. Now, if they give him a 4-year, $5 million AAV, that one I'm going to be like, what are you doing here? Because you haven't even signed Broberg yet. But if we're talking about somebody who is, cost controlled, that is probably a steal in a couple of years, that one I'm not going to be upset about. I just don't know if it's at the top of my priority list if I'm the Blues.
I view this pretty similarly to the way that we talked about Sam Bennett earlier. If the Blues announce an extension this offseason with Cam Fowler, I totally get it. Would I have been the one to do it? No, probably not. I'm also not in charge of the team, and Doug Armstrong has more than earned the benefit of the doubt with his dealings at the helm for the Blues. Same thing is true for Sam Bennett. If they announced this offseason that the Blues signed like a 6 or 7 year deal with Sam Bennett, is it something that would have been my priority this offseason? No, probably not. I totally get how you get yourself there, but that would start making me nervous about this window. You really have to capitalize soon because the back end of those deals might put you into a place where the opportunity cost, when you have Sam Bennett at $7 million and Cam Fowler at another $4 million, it's $11 million of your cap that now 3 years from now, you have no idea what the level of play is going to be from those two guys.
That's why, and I know Doug told us that it's not a priority for them, but they'll explore it. Before I do any extensions, I need to have an idea of framework for Holloway and Broberg. Yeah. Once I have that framework, which I fully expect them to have, they know what those guys are going to cost. They've had the conversations. It's just a matter of can they get it done. But I want the framework in that, and then I can work around with Fowler. Because if you don't have Fowler, let's go down that path real quick. Let's say you just say, nope, Fowler walks at the end of his time here. Who's your top 4 left-handed defenseman? Because you're gonna overpay what you were gonna pay Fowler on the market, and the younger guys like Lindstein is not going to be ready for you there, and you really don't have anything else. So what's 2 or 3 more years at $4 million for a guy that can fill that hole for you while you still develop?
Totally fair. And it's a more than a reasonable retort. Sign Cam Fowler this offseason. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the... As we talked more and more about it, if it's $4 million, like whatever. I think the real problem is if it gets beyond that. Yeah, but yeah, and $4 million. And
that we will complain about because like that makes us a little sketchy if you can't get the Broberg and Holloway thing done.
If you want to get this done and you got a couple of years left, like you just gave, I think what you just said is the more the best point you've made? No, like it's a very good one, genuinely.
I changed your opinion on it, which I'll take.
If you end up with a 2-year extension, $4 million a year, you basically have the Leddy contract, which isn't hindering you from doing anything right now, in my opinion. And even if he became a third pair defenseman, you're already paying that for a third pair defenseman. So whatever. Yeah, just go ahead and get it done. Coming up next, more likely to happen. You guys give us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely here on 101 ESPN. Three 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You guys give us 2 scenarios. We will tell you which one is more likely. All right, let's start out with this one, guys. More likely to be on the Cardinals roster in 2026. Ryan Helsley or Nolan Gorman?
Oh, you jerk. I'll say it's Nolan Gorman. I I don't see them re-signing Ryan Helsley. I mean, if they do, that's a wild decision to make because closers just don't tend to go very well. And you're going to be spending, what was the projection that we had Kylie on that was talking? Wasn't it like 4 years by $75 million or something like that?
No. Like a little bit under the
Devin Williams and Devin Williams, too, what they were projecting. So, no, I'm going to say Nolan Gorman because at least there's a role for that. I don't know if you're going to give Ryan Helsley that money.
See, I would say it's more likely it's Helsley. I could see a path where they're in it. They convince themselves, you know what? Let's not sell off our pieces, and then they, whether it be at the deadline or in the offseason, convince themselves to sign Ryan Helsley to a contract extension. If Gorman's playing like this, there's no path to where he's here on the team next year because they'll just replace him with Sajaci. So I'll say it's more likely it's Ryan Helsley.
I think it's still Nolan Gorman, but the qualifying offer is the thing for me that throws this off. I just don't know. Like, what if Ryan Helsley doesn't have the year that he quite anticipated this season, and he doesn't feel like he can go out there and get that 4 to 5 year deal worth $15 to $20 million per season, and instead he'd have to settle on the open market for like a 2 or 3 year deal at 10 to 15 per year, and instead here in St. Louis he gets a 1 year $20 million contract. That could be out there for him. So I'll still say Gorman, but the qualifying offer is what makes me hesitate. Alex, what do you got for us?
Let's go this way, boys. More likely to happen, the Blues offseason edition. More likely it's a forward or a defenseman?
I think forward, especially after hearing Doug Armstrong yesterday.
The one thing, did he say a 200-foot offensive weapon forward?
I think he was referencing a forward. I don't know that he specifically said a forward.
Because that's sometimes they say, look over here, and it's really on the other side because a 200-foot offensive weapon could also be a defenseman.
Off of him saying, I feel good about our top 4 defense.
Yeah.
So that's where I think the context indicated to me he's talking about a forward. It's possible he was doing the look over here, but I think he was talking about a forward.
Yeah, that's my mindset too, but thought I would throw it out there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more likely they sign a forward because when I heard that comment, that was the first thing I thought of. They're looking for a 200-foot forward, probably a center is what he was referring to as my kind of guess to that. Guy that's going to help us out offensively at that center spot, but also is sound defensively. That was the way that I read into it. Guys, more likely to be seen first. Now, I know the caveat that we've seen this player for 2 games already, but I'm not counting that. Dalibor Dvorsky or J.J. Weatherholt?
More likely to happen to debut?
Yeah, we see them first. And when I say see them sustained.
Oh, okay.
Dalibor Dvorsky or J.J. Weatherholt?
I think Dvorsky, because I don't think you'll see Weatherholt at any point this season. And I think Dvorsky will get time at the NHL club level next year.
Yeah, that's my mindset, too. I think JJ's probably 2 years away. I think Dvorsky is going to have the Bolduc role next year to where he starts in the AHL, and then midway through the season, you will see him just be a sustained NHL player, depending on where it's at.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn because I'm not sure how much you're really going to see Dvorsky next year. And if you don't see him, I definitely think then Weatherholt is the one that beats him there. So I will lean towards J.J. Weatherholt. I could see where the Blues give Dvorsky another season to try and figure things out in the minor leagues.
Let's get to the text line. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. For more likely to happen, you guys give us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely. From the 314, more likely Jordan Kyrou breaks the franchise goal record or Thomas breaks the franchise points record. I'm guessing that's talking about a career?
Yeah.
Or single season?
Yeah, no, I'm going off of career. So points would be, I think points is held by Bernie. Double check these. Points is held by Bernie at 1,073. And goals, you said?
Yep. Goals
527. Yeah, Thomas Bernie Federko's number. I mean, Kyrou's good, but he's got, 35 this year, and I think he's like at 200 something. I mean, you'd have to play another 10 years and average 30.
Kyrou's at 150.
Yeah, you'd have to play another 10 years.
Another 400 goals.
Yeah. So you're averaging 40 goals for the next 10 years. Now, Robert Thomas, meanwhile, Robert Thomas in his career.
395.
395.
So he needs 700 more points.
10 more years, 70 points.
That's doable.
And which one do you think would be here 10 more years?
I mean, Thomas is, I think, more likely to do it regardless of what my answer to the who's more likely to be here. Like, Thomas, to me, is just the answer.
I like how you just tiptoed around that question. Way to go, man.
I agree. It'd be Robert Thomas.
I personally think Kyrou's going to be here. I know that is it feels like almost a minority opinion right now, but
I honestly don't know. I had your answer before I read JR's article earlier today.
yeah. Oh, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. I thought T-Bone was going to answer,
I already
and then
answered.
he didn't.
T-Bone's here.
I said Thomas is the answer.
Okay. So more likely to happen. You guys give us two scenarios to tell you which one is more likely. More likely by the season's end, someone in the national media will say the Cardinals won the Arozarena trade, or
whatever this one is.
Jordan Walker produces enough to bat fourth or fifth.
Oh,
Sure.
Never mind. Go the first one.
Never mind.
You jumped too soon there, T-Bone.
Yeah.
Someone's going to say it, because if Liberatore pitches like this to the trade deadline, there's going to be someone on the national outlet be going, I think the Cardinals may have struck gold in Matthew Liberatore. He's a legit number 2 or 3, and look at how Arozarena's played these last couple of years.
The correct answer is neither of these is happening, but
The Cardinals did not win their Arozarena. Can we set this aside for a second? The Cardinals didn't win the Arozarena trade.
For now.
It does not matter what happens next. They lost. That doesn't mean that Matthew Liberatore has to be a failure for them. The context of the trade is what's important. They missed out on a bat that would have helped them during their winning window in 21, 22, and 23, which is when Randy Arozarena in those seasons was 30, 25, and 20% above league average offensively. They were missing that exact type of bat in their lineup, and they traded that for a guy who did not contribute really in any meaningful way in any of those seasons. So, yeah, you lost that deal because of where you were as an organization when you needed that player and where you are today while you're getting the benefit of a left-handed starter. But what's more likely here? I think it's more likely somebody nationally says you won that trade, even though that's wrong.
What would it take then for that to change, for that to become
For you
a
to
winning
win
trade?
the deal?
Him to be like this for 6 or 7 seasons, 5 years, and it leads to your next window?
I think you lost the trade because, again, the context. Like, did the Braves lose the Adam Wainwright trade? I would say no. They got what they needed at that time, given where they were at in their life cycle as an organization. They got J.D. Drew, who helped them in their lineup. The Cardinals also definitely won the trade because they got a guy who became a franchise pillar for the next 20 years.
Well, but I mean, I guess couldn't I argue that we don't know if the Cardinals lost the trade? Because if they needed a starting left-handed pitcher that helps them for the next 5 years.
Sure, but they needed that then. They traded for Libby because they thought he was a projectable starter that could immediately contribute to their rotation, and he couldn't. He wasn't a guy that was going to be fast-tracked to the big leagues, and the Cardinals tried to rush him, and it failed. So, to me, yes, if they end up with a starting pitcher that is here for the next 5 seasons, that's a really nice piece to have. And if you had just said, is this a developmental success? 100%. But they needed Randy Arozarena's bat in the outfield, and they were missing that, and they traded it away for a guy that did not contribute at the time. So I do not think that there's a way for the Cardinals to win that deal. No.
And I think it's unlikely they end up doing it. I still think there's a path to winning the trade, because where I disagree is, sure, maybe they missed that window, but if he is a key pillar to whatever the next window is, and he ends up being here longer than what Randy A was with Tampa Bay, then to me, you won that trade.
Can I throw another one?
Sure.
More likely to happen.
We gotta go to break.
No, we don't. The more likely to happen, the Blues sign Mitch Marner this offseason or Kyle Connor next offseason?
Connor, I don't think they're signing Marner.
Oh, cool. Thought me spark some fun debate, but there you go, ladies and gentlemen.
Do you guys think they're going to pay somebody $14 million?
I think Tom Stillman's money is sitting at the table, and it's just a matter of does he want to accept it.
Attaboy,
It's not
Army.
Doug's money.
I feel like when Army made that comment, he's like the little kid that saw mom's $20 bill sitting on the table. It's like, oh, she won't notice if that's gone.
I'll never forget when we asked Tom at that media day last year at the beginning of the season, and we asked him about the offer sheet. And you could tell in his eyes, he was like, yeah, I was a little surprised when we found out that we were paying those guys the money.
Yeah, I think it's definitely Kyle Connor. I also think he makes more sense for what you're missing.
Younger.
I don't think that this team is missing necessarily another guy that is pass first.
Oh, yeah, God.
Get a finisher. What Kyle Connor is that?
What an obnoxious line if Booch, Thomas, and Marner was a line. Everybody would just be passing the entire time.
And I think it would be really good. It would be
Globetrotters.
highly productive. It would be at times very frustrating to watch. But, listen, if they sign Marner, I'll celebrate the move like crazy. It'll be a good move, and he's a great player.
I'll buy a jersey.
To me, Kyle Connor makes more sense.
I agree. I would go Connor because of what you said. Pass first, don't necessarily need that. And I think it's more likely I could see a path for Connor here than I could Mitch Marner.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
I
Now,
thought about
Connor
this.
McDavid's a different conversation.
Which one is more likely to happen first? The Blues going to the top of the market, or the Cardinals handing out a $100 million contract in free agency? Which one is going to occur first?
When you say top of the market, like would you consider Besser, Bennett, Nikolai Ehlers, any of those guys to be top of market?
I would.
Like $7+ million deals.
Okay, I was thinking more of $10+ million.
Because I think that changes some things for me. I think it is more likely that the Cardinals would go to the top of the market than the Blues are paying 10+ mil.
See, I think it would be. I'd go with the Blues. Because now it hasn't been the 10+ mil, but they've gone to the top of the market before when they've needed something, and it was Paul Stastny. I could see him doing it again.
I think that the game has changed for the NHL the way that the game has changed for the Cardinals. Like if you had said go to the top of the market for the Cardinals, and we're talking about acquiring Kyle Tucker, like that style of player, that's not happening. I think then it would be more likely for the Blues. But if you're talking about just a $100 million player, dude, just acquiring a good player costs you $100 million now in Major League Baseball. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, I want to get back to the Blues, talk a little bit about this, Alex. We mentioned earlier today, the Blues are in a spot where they have a ton of ammo. What does that mean for them going into this offseason, whether it's with their cap space or the flexibility they have with a lot of the young players? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to tell you about my friends out at Rhino Shield. The exterior of your home, it needs a new look. It needs a facelift. Frankly, it needs something that you can depend on that's not going to deteriorate year after year after year. And that's what happens if you just get paint on it. I've done this before at our old house. We painted it because it was an ugly shade of blue. The problem was we kept painting it. And then I called Rhino Shield when we got to our new home. My wife wanted it. She wanted a new look. Had Darren come out, and he explains to me the ceramic coating process. It sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than paint. They've engineered their product to outlast paint. Plus, it protects against UV rays, so you're saving money on energy bills. It's 100% waterproof. It resists those chipping and cracking and fading looks on the exterior. Plus, whatever type of exterior you have, aluminum block, wood, cedar, all of it is working with Rhino Shield. So give Darren a call today. Tell him Alex Ferrario sent you over. He'll walk you through the whole process of getting a coating of a Rhino on your home or business. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25rhino.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals trying to complete a sweep of the Pittsburgh Pirates as they are currently in action. They lead 3-0 in the top of the 6th inning with Sonny Gray on the mound for St. Louis. We'll keep you updated on the Cardinals game throughout the day today here on 101 ESPN. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, Cardinals up 3-0, as T-Bone just mentioned. What he didn't mention was that Masyn Winn has had one hell of a day today. Multiple doubles, has driven in a couple of runs for the Cardinals. Looks like a natural fit in the 2-hole.
Well, I was just going to ask, BK, where's he hitting from again?
So he's batting in the 2-hole, and if you want to take a look at how he ranks right now among Major League Baseball shortstops, we can go ahead and do that,
Yeah,
Alex.
please,
These are
please.
the updated numbers. Here's a quick list of players in a similar spot when it comes to OPS to Masyn Winn. These are primary shortstops for their respective teams.
Sorry to interrupt you, but if I remember correctly, somebody had told me that moving him to the 2-hole was a bad idea, but go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Corey Seager has the same OPS this season as Masyn Winn, as does Mookie Betts. Guys that have a worse OPS on the year than Masyn Winn include Elly De La Cruz, Trey Turner, Dansby Swanson, Jeremy Pena, Gunnar Henderson, Trevor Story, Xander Bogaerts, Willie Adames, and Carlos Correa. I think I named like 7 players that make $100 million on their current contracts that are currently, again, below Masyn Winn when it comes to OPS. Most of them are worse defensively than Masyn Winn as well. So just wanted to mention that as we go along here today to keep us accountable here on the show when we say things that are not just bad, but loud wrong.
First off, the tone on that was nice. I mean, it was deserved. It was nice. I just want to point out, I like Masyn Winn. My premise of hitting in the 2-hole is he still is not your best hitter on the team. Now, granted, right now he is, so okay, fine. I will admit Ali Marmol was right in putting him in the 2 spot. But you know what? There's only like 2. I'll say this. There's probably just 4 players on that list of shortstops that you said that I would say probably finish with better numbers than him this year. And that is the Seager, the Betts, who are right there with him. And then I think Gunnar Henderson will ultimately end up better numbers than him.
He's had a terrible year
which
so
is
far.
Wild. And then the other one is, I think maybe De La Cruz, but I think that one will be close as well. I mean, right there's a top 5 potential shortstop in baseball.
Pretty good. So, by the way, you said he's not your second best hitter?
Yeah.
You know where he is right now?
I'm going to guess second best.
Brendan Donovan has the best OPS on the team at 850. Masyn Winn is second at 785. Any guesses on who's third right now? Third on the team in OPS so far throughout the season. Victor Scott.
Yeah.
Fourth?
Or Arenado?
Nope. He's fifth.
Lower. Contreras?
Nope. He's sixth.
Burleson?
Nope. He's seventh.
Pedro Pajes.
He's eighth.
Joel Pozo.
Newbar.
Is indeed fourth.
So 3 of your top 4 lefties.
Yep. And all of them
fitting to have them where they're hitting too,
players.
right? 1, 2, 3.
It's almost like getting your top 5 players into the top 5. It's funny how that works. I do think I would be curious to see what they do with Victor Scott. Do you consider moving him up in the lineup eventually?
Leave him there.
Problem is, I don't know where he would fit.
Look at how you're scoring.
Okay, sure. I thought you meant top 5.
No,
but look at how you're scoring the runs right now. He's getting on base in the 9-hole, and then you're moving him over and you're scoring.
It is that double leadoff thing, like where after the first inning, you're just getting him fewer at bats. Yeah. That's the one downside. And he has a really high on base percentage. He's at a 360 on base for the season. It's pretty similar to what you're getting out of Newt. So I would like to see him up more often. And he's hitting for average as well, so you can get that contact where you've got guys on and he can drive them in. But to Alex's point, I don't necessarily want him coming up with their 7, 8, 9 coming up.
I will take T-Bone's stance if they move Victor Scott out of the 9-hole. That one will frustrate me.
The one scenario that you maybe could make it work is like you could do the double leadoff at the top where it's like this would be very non-traditional, but Newt 1, Scott 2,
Win 3.
Win 3.
T-Bone would lose it.
Yvonne Herrera 4, Donovan 5, and then Arenado 6.
Okay, well, 2 things aren't happening. 2 lefties aren't going to hit back-to-back, and Arenado's not moving down.
To be fair, this is part of the reason why I lost my ish when they went into the 2 spot. Because when I think of the 2 spot, there's 2 things that I prefer when you're looking at that spot. One is your best hitter. And though Winn has been clearly one of their top 3 hitters so far this year, when I'm thinking about the long run for the Cardinals and where he was at the time, Contreras was on a 10-game hitting streak, and I still believe Contreras will finish as the best overall hitter on this team. So that was my premise behind that. But the other approach that I have liked, because I've mentioned this a lot when we've talked about Donovan and Nootbaar and where do you hit them in the order a lot, is I either want your best hitter hitting 2 or I want your best hitter hitting 3 with 2 just on-base machines in front of them. So, like, if they did do what you're talking about, where it is Victor Scott 2, Nootbaar 1, and then you wanted to put Winn or Contreras, whoever ends up being your best hitter at that point in that 3 spot, I can get behind that. That is my whole premise on the 2 thing. But hey, as I said before we came back from break, I'm like a weatherman, and I'm paid to be wrong.
314-399-9646 is the air covered service text line. We also got this from Bill over on the YouTube chat. Yeah, fake BK. 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks into the season, you were having a nervous breakdown about Winn. He's a stud. That was not me.
Wasn't me.
Who's having
Just
a
to be
nervous
very
breakdown
clear,
about Winn?
I told T-Bone he needs to relax about Masyn Winn and some of the underlying numbers. I think, and you guys
anybody
know,
on this show overreacted.
Tanner absolutely did.
Oh,
He was saying there are warning signs about Masyn Winn's batted ball profile.
I
He's
said
not hitting the ball
having
hard.
a down year. I didn't say like becoming Gorman. But
T-Bone.
But yes, Tanner was definitely nervous, and I think a lot of it goes back to like sometimes we dive so much into the numbers. I'm as guilty of it as anybody, and so like the only way you can be a successful major league hitter is if you hit the ball really, really hard. That's just not the case. Some guys, like, they go about it with a different profile. Masyn Winn is an outlier with the way that he is successful at the plate. Sometimes there are guys that just are consistently good that way. Brendan Donovan, an outlier with the way that he wins at the plate. Some of that is his batted ball profile. A lot of it is the way that he controls the strike zone. So you don't want to make an entire team out of exceptions, but the Cardinals have at least a few of them. All right, coming up next, we'll hit the BK and Ferrario Rewind here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It is all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app is also sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Alex, it took us 2.5 hours to do so, but we got back on clock.
Look at us. You know what? I felt like today was a very calm show compared to yesterday.
Yeah, relatively speaking.
Everybody was in a pretty good mood today.
11 minutes late today, and it was much easier to navigate than anything that took place yesterday.
Yeah, it was a very good, smooth show today.
All right, so we were going to talk about the Blues in the 1:30 segment. We decided to talk about Masyn Winn instead. We'll go ahead and carry that over to tomorrow. We've got plenty of Blues talk coming for you guys. By the way, if you are craving even more Blues conversation, you can check out the latest edition of the Last Minute Blues podcast. It's available for you right now, wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple, Spotify, 101ESPN.com, the app. You can also check it out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Alex, JR, Donnie, they recorded a brand new podcast today. What will people find over there?
A lot of reaction from the exit interviews yesterday. We talked about aggressiveness versus patience in the offseason. If they're aggressive, who do they go after? And, of course, we got into a little of does Dvorsky make this team out of camp next year?
And the answer to that is no, right? Everybody agreed?
You'll have to listen to find out because not everybody agreed. Brandon.
Interesting. I will be listening to that to find out.
Come on.
We are going to be recording, T-Bone and I, a new Redbird Report podcast in our fabulous new studio here in just a little bit. So be sure to check that out after the show today. It should be posted by about 4 o'clock. So if you're craving any more Cardinals content, you can find that over there. But you can also get some right now. Cardinals have the potential, they're up 3-0 at the end of the 6th inning, to win their 5th game in a row today, guys. They did that one time in the entirety of the 2024 season. If they finish this out, will be 19-19, right back to 500 once again. And Alex, if you look at the way they've gotten here, they went 0-7 combined in Boston and New York, the series that they had against the Mets. And in those two series, they had a negative 27 run differential. If they win today, they will be 19-12 in every other game that they've played so far this year, with around a plus 35 run differential. Are you reaching a point where you feel like those two series were the outlier and this is more of what the team has been? Or is that still a big part of who the Cardinals are, and at any point in time that team can show back up? How are you feeling about the Cardinals?
The latter. Because as great as they were in these games, and to put yourself back in the 500, you're once again awesome at home. The losses that you're talking about were both on the road. The last couple of games you played on the road, you split the series against the Reds. I think some of that was because of that rain delay, because you got screwed on the Matthew Liberatore start. And you did beat you won the one game against the Atlanta Braves. You've been awesome at home. You're going to be 15-6 if you hold on to this one. You're still 4-13 on the road. So I can get excited about this team, and I was excited about this team earlier on the show. But two things can also be true. I can't invest into this because they've done this all year at Busch Stadium. Show me it on the road, and then you're a different team.
Their biggest issue on the road has been their bullpen. Famous last words, this could change tomorrow. But I guess technically not tomorrow because they're off.
Knowing
so
you,
Friday.
it will change on Friday.
I think they're starting to get it figured out in the bullpen. I really do. I think Jordan Graceffo is a big part of that. I think Steven Matz just being in the bullpen now. Ollie Marmol said yesterday on the Gas House Gang over on KMOX, they're not going to go back to the 5-man or 6-man rotation for the foreseeable future. They have Thursdays off basically every week for the next month. So Steven Matz is now a bullpen arm for them. That's a big thing. Then you've got the 3 guys they've always trusted so far this season with Leahy, Maton, and Helsley. And then you add in some of the other guys, JoJo, whoever ends up coming up, whatever. You're feeling pretty good about that, man. You're 5-6 options deep in your bullpen now. That could change the way you feel about this team on the road. Your rotation's starting to settle in. Sonny Gray has been really good today. Libby was excellent yesterday. You're also going up against a terrible lineup. That's certainly context, but they did this as well against the New York Mets. So,
and the Pirates.
T-Bone, for you, how are you feeling right now? Big picture thoughts.
I am starting to buy into what they are doing. Now, there are some things when you kind of look under the hood. I mentioned the rotation earlier today. Libby looks like he's going to sustain. Like, peeking under the hood, everything looks great. It's the other guys that you take a look at. Like some of the under the hood numbers for Sonny Gray, who's been fantastic today, by the way.
And his stuff
are down.
looks great.
But it's weird because like his stuff does look great. So like it might just be one of those where it's going to be one of those years where the advanced numbers for Sonny don't look good, but you're going to end up seeing the standard numbers are there for him. I feel confident because I feel more comfortable about the bullpen because I like what we've seen from Graceffo. I like the fact that they're now going to have Matz into this just left-handed role because when JoJo and John King were struggling, that's what I said on the Redbird Report was I would move Matz into that high-leverage left-handed arm, and if you wanted to stick with a six-man rotation, make McGreevy that. Well, now that that's just out of the picture, now that they've got a bunch of off days coming up, I love the way that the bullpen is starting to shape up, and that, to your point, is their bigger issue. Their bullpen at home this season has the fifth best ERA in baseball at 2.4. Their ERA when they go on the road this season is the second worst in baseball at 6.56.
And a lot of that is because on the road they've been losing, which means you see the underbelly of
Yep.
the bullpen. And at home, you see the big guys, right? You get a lot of Phil Maton, you get a lot of Kyle Leahy, you get a lot of Ryan Helsley. And when those players enter the game, it's the reason why they're all in our circle of trust. You feel pretty good about it. Those guys are getting the job done. Now, Helsley has made it a little more interesting than you'd like lately, but more often than not, they find a way to get it done. So I feel better about the team right now. Totally understand the perspective, though, Alex. They're a 500 team, so I get it if anybody is still highly skeptical on this.
By this next road trip, if they come back with a above 500 record or even floating around 500 in a couple of games, you could see the reasons why they lose. It's going to be hard for me not to be starting to buy into what this Cardinals team could be this year.
And I'm jumping way ahead here. This month will tell you what they are really made of. If you want to buy in or not, the reason I say that, they have got after today, I think it was 21 games that I just counted up, 21 or 18. Only 3 games are against a team that's below 500, and that's the next series at Washington.
Yep.
And then everybody else that you are playing are teams that look at themselves as potential playoff teams and are at or above 500 coming into that series.
I don't think that you included Baltimore in that. And Baltimore, it's been a really terrible year for them. They're 13-21 so far this year. Same thing for Texas. They are at 500 right now. They're 18-18. They just fired their hitting coach, who was the talk of baseball 2 years ago, and now he's out. Those two teams are going to be desperate. A complete desperation mode by the time you play them. So, yeah, it's a huge month for the Cardinals.
15 of their next 21 are against teams above 500 or at 500.
Yeah, and they're all really good teams. So, Cardinals picked a good time to get back on track because it just allows you the opportunity to go up against these teams. And
you're going to be getting Herrera back soon, too, so that's going to be massive.
No doubt. And he's a huge piece of what this offense was at the beginning of the season, and they have not been the same ever since. All right, he's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Again, Last Minute Blues podcast is available for you now. The Redbird Report will be available for you later on this evening. The podcast page is always open for you as well. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.